What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Izuku was experimented on and got a time quirk. At age 5, Izuku Midoriya was stolen away from his mother by the League of Villains. All for One was trying to create new Noumus that were as brain dead as the last ones he created. The League of Villains started their experiment on the quirkless boy, injecting him with chemicals, beating him and whipping him, rinse and repeat. After 3 years of torture, the pro heroes found and saved Izuku. But he's not how he used to be. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations, and support the amazing author, Izuku Prince, for writing this story. Now, let's get into the story. It was a normal day for the Midoriyas. Izuku was playing outside with his friend, Katsuki Bakugo, running around in the fresh summer breeze. An average day, that is, until it hit night. After Izuku was tucked into his bed and Inko went to sleep herself, they attacked. Silent in the night, carefully forming a hole large enough in the child's window and sneaking in, they carefully bound the child, taping his mouth shut. The kidnapper turned around, feet lightly hitting the ground as he steadily made his way back to the window. He passed the child through to his partner before climbing back through himself. Both broke into a silent sprint, disappearing through a purple and black portal, back to their hideout. "Sensei, we got the kid." The one holding the child in his arms spoke, grayish-blue hair falling over his chapped skin as his blood-red eyes scanned over to his boss. His sensei slowly stood up, a smirk stretching over his non-existent face, skin molded all over where his eyes and nose used to be, leaving only his mouth left. His black suit glistened in the moonlight pouring in through a cracked window, illuminating the space around them. A run-down bar, alcohol lining rows upon rows of rotting, wooden stands. "A job well done, Tamura. We can finally start our little experiment. Let's see if this hypothesis works." He took the still sleeping child from the man now known as Tamura and headed down to a basement area. Once down, he opened up a dark wooden door, entering to a testing lab. Large tubes filled with toxic green liquids, tens of hundreds of Noumus laying around, some decomposing, and all sorts of tools used for dissection and injection. A single metal bed lay in the center, a tray of tools set by its side. The tall, faceless man placed the child down, strapping him to the bed tightly before shaking him awake. His bright green eyes fluttered open as a yawn escaped his lips. He tried to sit up, before realizing he was stuck. His breathing quickened as he frantically glanced around the room, eyes landing on the figure who trapped him there. "Who are you?" Izuku stuttered, eyes widening in fear as tears threatened to fall. "Where am I?" "You may address me as All for One. As for where you are, well, that's for me to know. And for you not to," the man chuckled as he watched Izuku squirm around, trying to free himself from the restraints. "There's no use trying to escape." He grabbed a needle in his right hand, filling it with a sea blue liquid. He grabbed a knife in his left hand, its steel blade shining in the dim light from above, showing its blood-soaked tip. He traced it down Izuku's pale skin that protected his arm, drawing a line of crimson liquid that dripped down Izuku's arm. He let out a small yelp of pain, All for One's smirk growing wider. "Let's have some fun," his sickening voice laced with amusement as he injected the needle into Izuku's neck, dragging the knife down his skin. "And no, stop it, please, make it stop," Izuku cried as the blood oozed down his cuts. "It'll all be over soon, kid. Someone, please help me." "Hello? Thank G God someone picked up. And my son was KK kidnapped last night." A green-haired lady sobbed into the phone, tears streaming down her face as she choked the words out. "Calm down, ma'am. Tell me what happened. Is there anything indicating how they broke in?" Inko wiped her tears away as she answered. "I found a whole C carved into the window of my son's room. That's all I could find. I'll send a detective over, alongside the police. I just need your address." XXXX. They hung up with a simple hum and goodbye, leaving Inko to her own thoughts. She waited there for what felt like hours on end till a knock on the door snapped her out of her trance. She stumbled up, rushing frantically over to the door and pulling it open. The detective showed his ID card that read Naomasa Tsukachi as the police entered, following Inko to her son's empty room. Naomasa looked around, picking up the rough cutout of a glass circle that laid on the ground. His gaze trailed up to the window, peering outside it to the grassy side paddock. He sent a few police officers round to check to see if there were any clues to be seen before turning to face the distressed mother. "Ma'am, there's no need to fret. We will find your son," he said in a calming tone as to reassure the woman. "But my baby," Inko cried, fat tears rolling down her cheeks as she dropped to her knees. He could be anywhere. I promise you I'll find him. Comma carrot comma, comma carrot comma. Stop squirming, brat. You're just making this harder on yourself, Tamura yelled, cracking a whip over the green-haired child's chest. He cried out in pain from both the whipping and the chemical that was injected into him. This one was different. It was glowing neon green, the toxins slowly entering his bloodstreams from his neck. Screams of agony arose from his throat, only to be heard by the villains that trapped him there. Tamura continued to crack the whip through his torn clothes, scarring his once clean, pale skin. It's been a week since this treatment started. The villains injected him with new or old chemicals every day, and the more he screamed, the more they hit, kicked, whipped, and cut him. But they always made sure he stayed alive, no matter what. Stop now. He can't die on us yet. All for One's loud voice flooded into the rusty lab as the rotting door creaked open. Tamura dropped the whip on the concrete ground with a loud thud. He soon left the room so All for One could do his business. He stalked over to the child, placing his large hand on his forehead and stroking back the green locks. Izuku stared up at him in fear, body shaking. I think it's time we crank this up a bit, eh? His smirk grew wide as he took up a needle, plunging it into Izuku's neck. The crimson liquid of Noumu's blood and Quirk flooded in, earning loud shrieks, louder than the last. Won't be long now, All for One murmured as he left the room, closing the door behind him as the scream died down. My masterpiece will be completed no matter what. Time skipped 3 years. Toxic green liquid drained out from the tube as the glass that held the liquid in it opened up. An 8-year-old child fell out into the arms of the faceless man. His eyes slowly opened, looking up at the man. Scars lined his face from previous beatings, his right eye the usual green, but his left, it looked as if a clock was embedded into his eye, replacing it in a shining gold. He stood up straight, staring at the League of Villains' boss as he smirked. The experiment's done, it's a success. Sensei, we have to leave, the pros are here, Tamura yelled as he rushed into the basement, his eyes that were covered by a disembodied hand landing on All for One stitching up Izuku's torso. The pros, damn it, get everyone out of here, I'll join you shortly, All for One said, waving Tamura off as he finished with the wound inflicted upon his new human Noumu. He grabbed all sorts of testing tubes, tools and samples of organs that laid scattered around the area. A purple-black portal opened up just next to him, signaling that Kurogiri has gotten everyone else to safety and was trying to bring him. He chucked all the supplies in, hearing loud commotion and banging right outside the rotting door that protected him and the child. Before he could reach Izuku, a bullet was fired, shooting right through the door and jabbing through his outstretched hand. Shit, he cursed under his breath as the door was thrusted out of its hinges, almost hitting Izuku, who sat emotionlessly on the metal bed. Policemen barged in, guns raised and firing at All for One. The pro hero's Eraserhead and Snipe bounded in, joining the policemen in trying to capture All for One. He couldn't grab the child in time. He retreated back into the portal, it disappearing with him, leaving only the policeman and the blank-faced child. Eraserhead walked up to him as the guns were lowered, outstretching a hand that landed on Izuku's hair, ruffling it. What have they done to you? He murmured, scooping Izuku up in his arms. Check the surround area. They might have left behind something of use. Report back after you're done. Sir, they all saluted before running off, searching the entirety of the League of Villains' hideout. The pro who held Izuku left the hideout immediately and drove to a nearby hospital where Izuku was taken for surgery. Eraser dialed up Naomasa, telling the detective that they've found the kid. I'm on my way over. Izuku sat idly on the white bed, staring out the window at nothing. A bandage was carefully wrapped around his left eye, his grown-out, curly green hair falling over it. The sound of a door opening snapped him out of his trance state. He turned his head round, green eye landing on the nurse that entered. Good morning, Midoriya. How are you feeling? She asked, pushing back a few strands of black hair. Izuku slowly tilted his head down, gazing down at his bandage's hands. The nurse heaved out a sigh, walking over to the bed and sitting down on the edge. She grabbed one of his hands, squeezing it softly and comfortingly. There's someone here to see you, she said, waiting for any sort of reaction from Izuku. He only looked up at the nurse for a few moments before gazing back down at his hands. The nurse stood up, walking out of the room. A few seconds later, the door reopened as a short, long green-haired woman stepped inside. She walked over to Izuku and grabbed a chair, sitting beside the bed. Izuku, she started, earning the boy's attention. Honey, how do you feel? How's your head? I am fine, Izuku murmured, looking into his mother's green eyes. Everything's still a bit fuzzy though. I can't really remember what happened. Inko took Izuku's hand in hers, gently stroking it with her thumb. Detective Naomasa entered the room, a doctor and nurse following suit. Inko turned to him, tightening her grip on Izuku's hand. "Ms. Midoriya, could you please leave the room? We need to conduct a few tests," Naomasa said. At the world test, Izuku froze, eye growing wider. He started to hyperventilate, clutching his chest. Inko grabbed his shoulders, hushing him, telling him to calm down and take deep breaths. "Calm down, sweetie, Mr. Tsukachi doesn't mean those types of tests. You're safe here," she said, holding him close as he slowly calmed down. "I'm sorry, Mr. Tsukachi. I suggest that you don't use any words similar to that. It's a stress reminder." "Oh, okay, sorry for causing trouble," Naomasa apologized, walking up to the bed as Izuku calmed down, tilting his head up. "Izuku, we just need to ask a few questions. You don't have to worry about anything. You're safe here." Izuku slowly nodded, still a bit shaky. Inko planted a kiss on his forehead before leaving with a small wave. Naomasa brought out a few sheets of paper, each with a sort of pop quiz for different subjects on them. The doctor and nurse brought over a table before grabbing more chairs for them. "We're going to remove the bandages around your eye now. Just tell us if you feel any pain." "Alright," the nurse said, reaching over as she started to unwrap the bandage. It loosely fell off, allowing Izuku to see with both eyes. It fluttered open, revealing a golden eye that looked like a clock. His gaze dropped to the table with the papers on it. A golden hue surrounded the table before it shot back to its original spot. The papers flew everywhere, making themselves present in Izuku's view. The golden hue circled them, making them fly back to the stunned detective. In panic, Izuku quickly covered his eye with his hands while the doctor wrote something down on his clipboard. The transmission of a quirk was successful. The villains knew what they were doing, he said, pushing the glasses that sat on his nose back up. "I suggest we start with the quirk as it'll be problematic if we don't. So far it seems to only affect inanimate objects. We should keep that in mind while we conduct these checkups," the nurse said, straying away from any words that might affect Izuku again. The doctor took out a case and opened it up, revealing a pair of glasses, sunglasses and contact lenses. He grabbed the glasses, telling Izuku to remove his hands before placing them on his nose. He opened his left eye again, looking through the glasses. He focused on the sheet of paper Naomasa threw into the air. Nothing happened. The glasses were removed and replaced with the sunglasses. Again, nothing happened. Lastly, the contact lenses. The paper flew back to Naomasa's hand. The lenses were removed and replaced with the glasses. Quirk, clockwork. Activated when the user opens the affected IS. Reverses time on any object the user focuses on. No known ways to deactivate the quirk. To cancel out, close IS. Or cover it. Them, the nurse explained, writing down new information as she spoke. "Izuku, are you alright?" the doctor asked, earning a nod in response. "We're gonna need you to answer some quizzes. They're elementary and up. We just need to see how far up you are." Naomasa handed him the sheets of paper and a pencil. The three of them exited the room and sat right outside as Izuku started answering the questions. "Simple questions. These are for preschoolers. Who do they think we are?" "Shut up and leave me alone. I need to finish these," Izuku murmured. "Aw, come on, Izu, you know you can't get rid of me. I'm stuck with you, and you're stuck with me." "I never asked for this." "I didn't either, but Sensei created me, as well as your quirk." "Don't call that thing Sensei. He made me, no, us, into what we are. But with that brought pain, horrid pain. No matter how much I screamed or begged, it never stopped. I can still feel it, and hear my shrieks and cries. No matter how hard I try, I can't forget it." "He doesn't want us to forget. Just shut up. I don't want to deal with you anymore." Fine, I'll go, but I won't be gone." Izuku finished the quizzes and called the detective, doctor and nurse back in, though, when he entered, Naomasa had a worried look on his face. He didn't voice his worries, but just took the papers away to be marked. "Thanks for your time, Izuku, we'll be leaving now," Naomasa said, bowing slightly before exiting the room. The doctor and nurse did a few more checkups on Izuku before leaving themselves. The greenette lay back down, head rolling to the side as he stared out the window up at the darkening blue sky. Thoughts raked his brain as he stared, trying to block out the voice imprinted into his head that constantly nagged him. He closed his eyes, wanting to get as much rest as he could. "Stop stridging. You'll only make this worse. Don't fight it. You'll become my masterpiece. This'll all be over soon. Someone, help me. No one will hear you. Stop crying. You've brought this upon yourself. Stop it, please." Izuku shot up, panting and clutching his chest. Rage flashed in his eyes. clouding them in darkness, and he punched the wall. Blood dripped down his knuckles as he laughed. He held his head, pain coursing through his arm as his cackled. It soon turned to sobbing. He grasped at his hair, tears streaming down his face. He tore the glasses off his face, ripping the nightgown he was in and wrapping it around his left eye tightly. He cleaning the blood off his hand before collapsing back onto the bed, his vision blurred as the tears rolled down his cheeks. He closed his eye, welcoming the darkness as it consumed him. Beep beep beep. The heart monitor woke Izuku, his green eye fluttering open. He looked to the left, seeing a nurse writing things down on a notepad. The same nurse from before. She looked down, black eyes connecting with his green one. "I see you're awake. How are you feeling?" she asked, strands of her black hair falling over her face. "I feel okay," Izuku replied, turning his head to face the ceiling. "Don't lie to yourself, you feel like S-hit." "Shut it," he murmured, just loud enough for only him to hear. Okay, no need to get hostile here. I'll keep quiet. It's not like they can hear me anyway." So annoying. Izuku turned back to the nurse, though. It seemed she already left. Alone again. This feeling I know too well. Being isolated by myself. How I hate it. Izuku sat up, feeling his muscles ache. He ignored the pain and ripped the force from his arm. He grabbed the glasses that rested next to him, and heaved himself out of the bed. Landing softly on the ground, he steadily made his way to the door. It opened automatically. He peered out, looking left and right. All clear. Clutching the glasses, he silently ran down the hall, only hearing the soft thud of his feet, almost inaudible. He ran as fast as his 9-year-old legs could take him, down the hallway. He reached the stairs, opening the door and going down. Talking, he stopped on the second floor. Hearing commotion down below, he was gonna have to wait them out. "Go through that door. There's a laundry first door on the right. You need new clothes. Can't be walking around in this hospital gown all day." Izuku followed the voice's instructions, carefully opening the door and running down to the first door on the right. He opened it slightly, peering in. No one to be seen. He entered quietly, closing the door behind him. He walked over to a pile of clean clothes, searching through. Black shirt, green hoodie with bunny ears, ripped jeans and socks. He stripped of the gown and pulled the new clothes on. Shoes are over by the door. He stepped over other piles of clothes. Reaching the shoes, he grabbed a pair of dark red sneakers, pulling them on. He ripped the cloth that covered his left eye off, pushing the glasses up on his nose. "Check the stairs again. If there's no nearby commotion, run down and leave immediately." Izuku nodded slightly, opening the door and leaving the room. He stuffed his tiny hands into the pockets of the hoodie, silently walking back down the hallway. He opened the door to the stairway, hearing quieter talking. It was still audible, meaning they were near the staircase. He slowly made his way down. Thud, thud, thud. He glued himself to the wall right beside the door, ears listening to the conversation. "There's something strange about that kid, the one with the clockwork quirk. It's to be expected. Those villains were experimenting on him." Izuku clutched his chest, trying to keep himself calm. "Don't think about that. You need to escape. Only focus on that goal. Don't let those words distract you. Just breathe. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out." Izuku calmed his racing heart, pressing his ear against the cold metal of the door. "We need to keep a close eye on him. He's not himself right now. Been a whole year since we brought him here. But he only started to act differently 2 months ago. Not even his own mother can get through to him. It'll take time. Sayoyaki, Josei, shift break." "Thanks." Footsteps died out, as well as the conversation. They were gone. "Now's our chance. Let's go." Izuku opened the door, looking around before making a break for it. He ran at full speed to the exit, hearing a few shouts behind him. Ignoring them, he ran fast. The large glass doors were in sight, the bright sky lighting his path. He pulled the glasses off, focusing on the doors. They shot open. They were in reach. "Stop, you could injure yourself. Please stop right now," a doctor called from behind. Izuku didn't care. That's how it was back in that basement. No one listened to him. Why should he listen to these people he doesn't even know? He ran out, skidding as he turned left. He propped the glasses back where they should be as he ran down the cobble path. He was free. Finally free. This is all he ever wanted. To finally be free. Izuku ran down the street, gaze fixated on the ground as he ran. Just as he turned the corner, he ran into someone. Rubbing his head, he looked up. A tall man dressed in black. Long scruffy black hair draping over his shoulders covered by a long bandage-like scarf. Sorry sir." Izuku apologized, bowing a little. Fuck, shit, that's Eraserhead." "How the heck do you know this? and watch your prone for Alnity Izu. I don't know and I don't care. Wait. I can talk to you just by thinking. Does that mean you can read my every though? Stop it, Izuku. Eraserhead is right in front of you. Hey kid, you alright? Eraser asked, crouching down. You seem to be in a rush. Aye, Izuku stuttered, looking around as he fiddled with the bottom of the hoodie. What the hell are you doing? I don't know, Izuku internally screamed before feeling himself being taken off the ground. What's Eraserhead doing? You're my son now, let's take you to the hospital. You need to rest, Eraser said. Wait, what? Izuku mentally yelled, eyes searching Eraser's face for any sign that he was joking. His face was serious. He wasn't joking. Or if he was, he wore a great poker face. Eraser didn't say anything more. He walked off, heading towards the hospital. Izuku started to struggle in his grip, tugging at the black clothes Eraser wore. No use. He sighed in defeat as Eraser entered through the large glass doors. He walked up to the front desk, holding Izuku in front of him. Eraserhead, thanks so much for finding Izuku. He just ran off without warning, the front desk lady exclaimed, taking Izuku from Eraser's grasp. Izuku struggled in the brunette's grip, thrashing around as he clawed at her arms with scarred hands. The lady winced, trying to calm the brunette down. Izuku frantically kicked at her, shaking his head in protest. The glasses fell off and he stared at the lady. Anger and frustration clouded his mind as he willed his new quirk to do something, to do anything that could help him. A golden hue surrounded the lady and she froze. Izuku escaped her grip, landing on the white marbled ground with a loud thud. Ow, he murmured, closing his eyes as he rubbed his head. The lady unfroze, blinking a few times before staring down at the child on the floor. He stood up, hiding behind Eraser's legs as he hissed at the lady. Eraser stared in disbelief at the child who glared at the lady. He picked Izuku up, this time without any trouble. He grabbed the glasses and propped them back on Izuku's nose. He really doesn't like the hospital, huh? He murmured, looking down at the child. No, he doesn't. He barely responds to us when we ask questions and doesn't like it when we tamper with the cords. Also, she trailed off, voice turning to a whisper so Izuku couldn't hear. He hates words with anything to do with experiment or test. He starts to hyperventilate when we mention them. Eraser nodded in understanding, subconsciously petting Izuku's long, curly green hair. Does he have any parents? Eraser asked, glancing down at the child who leaned into his touch. A mother. She comes by regularly to check on him, the lady replied, brushing back a few stray strands of her hair. I think he's well enough to go back to her. He seemed fine when I found him. Just tell me her address and I can drop him off, Eraser said. That is true. But are you sure? I don't want to cause you any trouble, the lady asked. It's fine. I'm not working anyway, Eraser reassured. The lady nodded in understanding, giving Eraserhead the address and checking Izuku out of the hospital. Eraser quickly left, Izuku still in his arms as he exited the hospital. Halfway down the street, Izuku finally asked the question that lingered in his mind. Eraserhead, he started, earning a hum from the pro hero. What did you mean by you're my son now? I already have a family. Eraser started to sweat, mentally face-palming, saying, I don't know what came over me, that kinda just slipped out. Oh, alright, Izuku murmured. What do you mean, oh alright, you just accepted that way too quickly and easily, what the fuck? Look who's using prone foralities now, Izuku mentally snickered, but come on, he's sweating buckets. I don't want to put more pressure on the man for lying to a kid, plus, he's a pro hero. He has it tough enough as it is. True, well we're almost home, I'm just glad to be out of that hellhole, seriously. You said it, Deku, you said it. Eraser reached Izuku's house, placing the greenette on the flat's entrance before knocking on the door. Footsteps echoed inside as the door burst open, a long green-haired woman revealing herself. Eraserhead, what brings why you here? Inko stuttered, shock and surprise evident in her voice as she spoke. Eraser just gestured down to Izuku who hugged his mother. Startled, Inko hugged back with a smile plastered on her face. Your son ran out of the hospital. The front lady said he was well enough to come back home, Eraser explained, causing a more shocked expression to etch itself into Inko's face. Really? I didn't think Izuku would do such a thing. Well, thanks for bringing him here, Inko thanked. Thanks Eraserhead. Izuku smiled a cheeky smile, hugging the hero's legs before running inside the house. Eraserhead said his goodbyes before walking off, leaving the mother and son to themselves. He trudged along the cobble streets back to his apartment where he found his roommate Hisashi Yamada, present Mike, broadcasting his radio show. Naomasa sat at his desk, eyebrows furrowed as he looked over some documents. He rubbed his temples as he heaved out a heavy sigh. Placing the documents down, he leaned back in his chair. A knock sounded from the office door, opening to reveal a tall, skeleton-looking blonde. "Good afternoon, Naomasa. How's are you?" he asked, a small smile forming as he walked over, before disappearing, seeing his friend's expression. "Is something wrong?" "It's this kid," Naomasa replied, resting his chin on his hand. "There's something strange about him, Toshinori. Those villains conducted many experiments on him. Now I don't know how to explain it." Toshinori placed a hand on Naomasa's shoulder comfortingly, saying, "May I take a look at those documents?" "Go ahead," Naomasa sighed, handing him the documents. Name, Izuku Midoriya. Age, 9. Quirk, clockwork, given to him by villains, affects his left eye. Height, 4 feet 1 inch. Curly green hair, large eyes, green right eye, gold left eye, pale skin, for large freckles under each eye. Usually kind nature, short stature. Deemed missing for 3 years. Found and saved in a villain's base in the basement. Many kinds of chemicals have been found in his bloodstream. Wounds, scars, fractures and broken bones over time have been mostly healed. What the hell kind of shit has this kid been through? Toshinori murmured, eyes widening as he read over the page. He's lucky we found him when we did. If it was any later, I'm not sure what would have happened to him, Naomasa commented, taking the document back. The hospital has patched him up the best they can, but there are still trigger words that stress him out, reminding him of what happened back down in the basement, though he never voices what happened. All we know is that they experimented on him and implanted that clockwork quirk in him. Other than that, nothing. Toshinori hummed in acknowledgement, staring down at his frustrated friend as he ranted. Not only that, he's almost at a university-level education, other than physical as for now, and apparently has a voice in his head that he speaks to. Things keep getting stranger and stranger with him. Naomasa finished, looking up at Toshinori. I'm not sure how to handle this. I'm sure you'll figure out a way. You've never given up on a case you've deemed possible. That's not how you are. I believe you can do something, anything to help this kid. You just need to believe in yourself first, Toshinori said with a kind smile gracing his features. Naomasa sighed, but nodded his head. I'll see what I can do. Comma caret comma, comma caret comma, comma caret comma. Izuku, sweetie, dinner's ready, Inko called up to her 9-year-old son. I'll be down in a second. Izuku was currently reorganizing his room. He fixed up his clothes, removed most of his All Might merch and placed it in boxes, replacing it with all kinds of books and study notes to read later. He changed his All Might bed covers and replaced them with normal white ones, stuffing it into another box. He grabbed the boxes and ran downstairs, placing them by the door before rushing over to the living room. He sat down at the table for 4 where his mother waited. A small smile gracing her features. Itadakimasu, they both said before digging into the food that being katsudan. Thanks, gulp, Mom, Izuku thanked as he gulped down the food. Slow down, sweetie, you'll choke on your food, Inko warned, though happy her son was enjoying the food. He quickly finished, hopping out of his seat and washing his bowl before placing it in the dishwasher. He hugged Inko tightly before running off back to his room. Before entering, he took off the All Might theme name tag from the door and entered. He rummaged round in his emptying room, searching for another plain name tag. Finding it, he went back out and slammed it on the door before heading back in. He looked around, shelves filled with books and study notes, desk littered with study notes, pens and pencils, drawings and a few All Might figurines. His light green walls now showed in the moonlight entering through his window, revealing fewer posters scattered across it. His wooden floor was clean, his clothes organized in the closet and bed plain. Much better. Defiantly, Izuku agreed. It's getting late. Let's shower then go to bed, Kay. You're in control. Go right ahead. Izuku grabbed a simple white shirt and dark gray shorts, leaving his room and heading down to the bathroom. He stripped of his old clothes, tossing them in the clothes basket before jumping in the shower, turning the water on. He washed himself down quickly, turning the water off and drying himself. He pulled his clothes on before taking the clothes basket and heading down to the laundry room. He headed back up to the bathroom, grabbing his green toothbrush and brushing his teeth. He spat it out, wiping his mouth before walking back to his room. Geez, it feels like a wave of sleep just hit me. Man, I can't wait to hit the bed. Yeah, you said it, Izuku yawned. I've been meaning to ask this for a while now, but can you take over my body? Izuku collapsed on his bed, waiting for a response from Deku. When he didn't get any, he pulled the covers over himself and closed his eyes, venturing into his mind. So, can you? Izuku asked, sitting on a small green lounge next to Deku. Deku didn't reply, looking away. Come on, tell me, I need to know, Izuku begged, grabbing Deku's arm. Deku sighed, turning to face Izuku. I can, and I have, before. Wait, when? I don't remember you taking over. I think I'd remember if you did, Izuku said, placing a finger to his chin as he tilted his head to the side, trying to remember. You were asleep, that's why you don't remember. It was when I was created. I took control before being pushed back by you when you woke up, Deku replied, leaning back into the soft green cushions. That makes sense now, Izuku murmured, nodding in understanding. Well then, I'm getting tried, let's sleep. It's been a whole month since Izuku was dispatched from the hospital. He was enrolled into the same junior elementary school as Katsuki Bakugo, his childhood friend, only friend, before he was kidnapped. He propped his glasses on his nose, pulling on the black uniform of Aldika Jr. He buttoned it up, looking himself in the mirror. Izuku traced a hand over the scars that lined his face, trailing up to his golden eye behind the glasses. The clock inside slowly ticked forward, seemingly in time with his bedside clock. Taking his focus off his eye, he brushed a hand through his curly hair, longer than he'd like. Seemingly satisfied, he grabbed his yellow backpack, swung it over his shoulder, and ran downstairs. Good morning, Mom. I don't want to be late, so I'm heading out, Izuku called out, grabbing some toast and running towards the house entrance, pulling his unique red shoes on. Alright, dear. Do you have everything? Inko asked, a hint of worry evident in her voice as she spoke. Izuku quickly searched through his bag, toast hanging from his mouth as he shuffled through the books. He ran back, grabbing his lunch and stuffing it inside his bag. He quickly hugged his mother, taking the toast out of his mouth before planting a kiss on her cheek. Thanks for reminding me, he giggled a bit. I'll be off now, goodbye. Bye, Izuku. Inko waved her son off as he sped out the door, jumping down the steps of the front porch and rushing down the street. He quickly ate the toast, eyes fixated in front of him as he ran, avoiding civilians on the way. Reaching the train station, he bought his ticket and waited, staring at the clock as time ticked by. Izuku. A hesitant voice sounded behind Izuku, causing the greenette to curiously turn his head round to see who called him. The ash-blonde hothead, his childhood friend, stood there, staring down at Izuku. His ruby-red eyes widened as they settled on Izuku's mismatched ones. Taking a step back to recompose, he seemed to get caught on his words that tried to come out. Izuku simply smiled. A normal, genuine smile, a tint of pink laying on his cheeks, making it stand out more. Hey Ka-chan, long time no see, huh? He greeted, seemingly taking no notice to the shocked state Katsuki was in. What the fuck happened to you? Katsuki mentally cursed himself for stuttering, though still wore a shocked expression. Oh my face. Well, I don't really like to talk about it. As for my eye, I was given a quirk. I'm no longer useless, Izuku replied, still overly cheerful as he talked. What the hell happened to the shit nerd? He's completely different. And what's with the fucking glasses? He has 20 vision as far as I know, Katsuki wondered, cautiously walking over to stand beside his green-haired friend. What exactly is your quirk? It's changed your whole fucking eye. It's called clockwork. Basically, I can reverse time on an object within my vision. So say you threw some paper into the air. I use my quirk and the paper will fly straight back into your hands. Though recently, I found out that if I focus on a person, I can freeze them as long as I'm looking at them. I have to wear these glasses in order to prevent me from accidentally using my quirk, cause I can't exactly control it right now. But I haven't been working on that yet, maybe I should start. Izuku continued to mumble, random words flying out of his mouth in a circle around his head. Only to be stopped when the annoyed blonde smacked his head. Quit mumbling, shitty nerd. It's fucking annoying as shut, Katsuki grumbled as Izuku pouted, rubbing his throbbing head. Well, he hasn't changed one bit. You can say that again, Izuku mentally sighed, facing the clock again. 2 more minutes. The two leaned against the sturdy concrete wall in comfortable silence, listening to the clock above them. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Ugh, this is so boring. Longest 2 minutes of my fucking life. Just sit tight. You're lucky you're in my head. Just make some cards and play solitaire or something, Izuku suggested, hearing Deku groan once more before complying. The train shortly arrived right after, coming to a halt. Izuku and Katsuki boarded on, luckily finding a pair of seats right next to the exit. They sat down, waiting as the many passengers boarded before the train took off again. Feeling a bit drowsy from waking up so early and wanting to keep his excitement intact, Izuku's head dropped down onto Katsuki's shoulder, earning a, "The fuck are you doing?" from said blonde. I woke up too early. I want to sleep. Please. Izuku gave puppy dog eyes to Katsuki, who tried to look away. TCH, fine. Just don't annoy me, shitrag. Katsuki gave in, earning a smile from the greenette, who happily perched his head on Katsuki's broad shoulder. He was surprisingly comfortable. He closed his eyes, venturing into his head, where he found Deku punching a punching bag in gym shorts without a shirt. Sweat dropped off as he roundhouse kicked the bag, sending it flying. Whoa, nice, Izuku said, sitting down on the green lounge as he watched Deku collapse on the ground, panting. Here, take some water, can't have you dying on me. Izuku tossed Deku a bottle of water, getting a thanks, as Deku, instead of drinking all of it, drank half and poured the rest on his face and chest. He jumped up, back on his feet, shaking his head to remove excess water from his darker green hair. He snapped his fingers, a pool appearing in front of him with a donut floaty in the middle. He cannonballed in, swimming under into the center of the donut, heaving out a sigh of relief. We're almost there, you should go back out, he said, closing his eyes as he floated in the water. Alright, have fun. Izuku waved goodbye as he exited, opening his eyes back on the train. He sat up straight, covering his mouth as he yawned. The train came to a halt, the two standing up and leaving. They left the station, now walking up the street to Aldika Jr. A wave of nervousness washed over Izuku as he stepped foot into the school, sticking to Katsuki's side. They reached the principal's office, entering to receive Izuku's schedule and locker code before leaving. He was in Katsuki's classes, so he stuck by him the whole way over to first period. Before Katsuki pulled the door open, Izuku grabbed his arm and turned him around. What, you scared? Katsuki teased, a small smirk plastered on his face. Why yeah, Izuku stuttered, nodding as his face tinted red in embarrassment as he looked away. I've been gone for so long. I don't know anyone but you here. It feels weird. Katsuki softly smacked him over the head before placing his hand on Izuku's shoulder, saying, Stop bitching and get inside. If you whine like this, then no one's gonna want to go near you. He pushed him to the door. Open it. This is your first step. Izuku swallowed a lump in his throat, taking in a deep breath as he slid open the door. A few students turned to the door. Confused looks etched into their faces as they stared at the new student. Izuku froze, sweat forming on his forehead as his eyes widened a little. Katsuki grabbed Izuku's shoulders and pushed him in, a scowl on his face as he glared at all the staring students. We have a new student, a kid with short brown hair called out, causing the other students to turn around. Cheers sounded around the classroom, causing Izuku to stiffen as he hid behind Katsuki. A few ahs sounded from the girls as Izuku tried to shrink in on himself. The teacher walked in, clapping his hands to gain the attention of all the students. Alright, everyone, please take your seats. We have a new student here. Please come up to the front and introduce yourself, he said, everyone sitting down as Izuku walked up to the front. He pushed his glasses up and turned around to face the class, saying, Hello everyone, I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet all of you. He bowed down slightly, standing up straight again as he gazed over the many students staring at him. Oh god, this is actually terrifying. Calm down, you can sit down now, you're next to Ka-chan. Just as Deku said that, the teacher ushered him off to his seat. He sat down, directly right of Katsuki near the door in the second last row. Class started up again as the teacher spoke. Though Izuku could feel the burning stares of his new classmates drilling into his back, he chose to ignore the stares and focus on the teacher, writing down notes even though he already knew most of this subject. Because of that, Izuku ended up drawing in the back of his book or talking with Deku, who was completely bored, lounging around as he stared up into blackness. Hey Izuku, watch your drawing. A bunny. You really like those, don't ya? It's either bunnies, sweets, or anything cute or delicious with you. Katsudon's been on your mind since breakfast. Hey, I like those things, so it's fine. I don't need you bickering like a mother over what I like. Fine. Also, pay attention. The teacher's gonna ask some questions. Izuku turned back to the front of his notebook, writing down and answering questions right before the teacher started asking questions. Alright then, Hiyori, what's... Izuku zoned out since he wasn't the one being asked. He heard the replies from the questioned students as he waited for his turn. It came and was done in a blink of an eye. Too easy. Izuku went back to completing his bunny, adding shading and detail where he could. Without warning, a large scrunched ball of multiple notebook pages was pegged at his head, causing him to jerk forwards and his glasses to fall off. The ball landed on his desk, a golden hue surrounding it before shooting up and flying back to the culprit. Izuku closed his golden eye, the paper ball landing softly on the back desk nearest the window. He propped the glasses back on his nose, opening his left eye again. Whoa, that was cool. Whose quirk was that? I think it was the new guy's. Really cool. Settle down, class. Settle down. Who threw the paper and who used their quirk? No quirk usage is allowed here, the teacher said. Hands pointed over at a navy-haired boy in the back. The teacher crossed his arms over his chest, an unamused expression on his face. Sorry sir. I didn't mean to throw it, he apologized, looking down. That's alright. Now, who used their quirk? Izuku shakily put his hand up. Sorry sir. I can't exactly control mine. That made the teacher quirk a brow. It's alright since you just came here. You don't know all the rules yet. Izuku nodded, sighing in relief. Class went by normally for the rest of the hour till the bell rung, signaling the end of period 1. The teacher left, chatter rising up among the students. Hey Midoriya, can you do that again? Yeah, come on please. Izuku turned to Katsuki for help, not sure what to do himself. Please Midoriya. I guess I could, Izuku stuttered, earning cheers from the surrounding students. I need someone to throw or move something. The navy and brunette from before grabbed a table and threw it over to the door. Izuku pried his glasses off and stared at the table. The golden hue surrounded the table, lifting it into the air before slowly floating back over to the same spot where it once was. It landed softly and carefully back on the wooden ground. Izuku placed his glasses back on his nose, pushing them up so his quirk wouldn't activate. That's so cool. How does it work? What's it called? Is your quirk what affects your left eye? Ka-chan, help me, Izuku murmured to the ash blonde beside him, turning to face him. No can do, you're on your own. Period 2 finally ended, allowing all the students to relax and go eat. Everyone rushed out of their rooms, running down as fast as their legs could take them, into the cafeteria. This formed what is called lunch rush. You either want to be at the front or just wait it out. Or if you can, get a friend who's at the front to get your food for you. But with all the pushing and shoving, that might not work. In a matter of moments since the bell, a huge line that wraps around the many tables laid out in the cafeteria was formed. This is what happens at Aldika Jr. How does anyone even get food here? Ka-chan, how long does this take? Izuku asked, looking up behind him at his friend. From 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how the lunch lady's feeling. And judging by this, she's feeling a little nasty. Keeping us and the fucking extras waiting like this, Katsuki replied as he leaned his head on the shorter males and sighed in annoyance. Standing there and moving ever so slightly as time ticked by, the duo finally reached the front. Sliding their trays over, they waited for the students in front of them to finish so they could reach the food. Hey hag, you feeling a little nasty today? What gives? Katsuki started a conversation with the lunch lady as he bought his food. I felt like I was being too nice last week. You kids need to be put in your place, she replied, dumping the food on both trays before shooing both males off. They walked away to an empty table near the back corner, sitting down across from each other. They made small talk as they ate, talking about random topics that popped into their minds, laughing and gasping time and time again. Just as their topic changed again, a tap on Izuku's shoulder snapped him back to the world around him. He tilted his head up, seeing a brunette girl and blonde boy. Hey, I'm Hiyori Iki. You're Izuku Midoriya, correct? The brunette introduced, holding out her hand to Izuku, who shook in return. That's my friend Yukain. He tends to get timid around others. I do not, Yukain exclaimed, a soft blush lingering on his cheeks as he huffed, sitting next to Katsuki, who gave him a nod of acknowledgement. Hiyori sat next to Izuku, both newcomers engaging themselves into the conversation. A few others, such as Kaneda Tachibana and Yuzuru Otanishi, joined their little group too, much to Katsuki's annoyance. Hey Hiyori, you mentioned someone called Yato. You said they were some kind of god, Izuku said, intrigued in learning about the so-called god. Oh yeah, Yato. He calls himself a god, but all he does is chores for other people. If he isn't doing that or harassing us, he's either sleeping or spray painting his number everywhere, Hiyori replied, sighing in irritation. Yato is just annoying. He can be nice and fun at times, but he's always pestering us, Yukain added, leaning his head on his hand. Before they could continue, the alarm bells started ringing. The group hastily jumped up, leaving their food as they joined the large crowd rushing out of the cafeteria. Katsuki grabbed Izuku's hand, keeping him close as all the students ran down the hallways. What's happening? Izuku mentally asked, feeling himself being pushed back by the many students pushing and shoving around him. It's either a drill or someone broke in. You'll find out in a sec. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thanks for the reassurance, Deku. No problem, just hold on to Katsuki tight. or you'll get pushed behind. Izuku tightened his hold on Katsuki's hand as he kept close. All the students eventually fell out of the school building, turning to the training grounds and rushing over. They all finally came to a halt, seeing the teachers moving round in front of them as they checked the roll. Do you think someone broke it? Nah, it's probably a drill. Are you sure? They never said anything about a drill. I doubt anyone got in. We'll have to wait to find out, I guess. Aw man, waiting is so boring though. Izuku stuck to Katsuki like glue, frantically looking around for answers. Roll call ended and the teachers explained the situation. A drill. Izuku heard sighs of relief from a few students as he himself sighed too. He moved back from Katsuki a few centimeters, though still held onto his hand. The teachers led everyone back, heading in through the back exit doors the students left through. Well, that was anticlimactic. I hope this day ends soon. Class is boring since I already know everything. Izuku mentally sighed as he and Katsuki entered their classroom, sitting down with their classmates. The teacher entered, clapping his hands together to gain everyone's attention, saying, "Alright then, now that the drill is over, let's start class." Great, now I know what you mean. This is gonna be boring as fuck. At least you don't have to sit through this. You can create whatever you want in there and do whatever you want. I have to sit here and listen to this lecture, Izuku retorted, a silent sigh escaping his lips as he leaned on his hand, staring up at the teacher who started to write neatly on the blackboard. True, and you can't come in here during class. How about I play some music? That should serve us for now. Thanks, that'd help. Deku chose the song I wanted that way. A small smile formed on Izuku's face as the music played in his head. Boredom still lingering in him, he started to draw again. It's a nice pastime he did back at home whenever he had nothing to do. He still answered the questions, though waited in anticipation for the school day to finally end. Wind blew through the air silently as chatter flooded out of Aldika Jr., the students walking out in large groups. Izuku waited by his locker for his new friends, humming to himself as a small smile graced his face. Sorry for keeping you waiting, Hiyori called out as she, Yukain and Katsuki came to a halt in front of the greenette. It's fine. Tachibana and Otanishi went on ahead, Izuku said, pulling on his bag straps as he stood up straight. Let's go. The group of four left the school, chatting with each other besides one scowling blonde. They walked down the street's cobble pathway, deciding to head to a nearby cafe, Oliver Green. They found a table, sitting down and looking through the menus. Hey Midoriya, Yukain started, gaining the attention of the greenette. I've been meaning to ask this, but what's with the scars? Izuku scratched his cheek, a look of distort forming on his face as he looked down. I don't really like talking about it. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring back bad memories, Yukain said. A waiter came over, taking the students' orders before walking off. They engaged in small talk, Katsuki opening up a bit, though still wearing the permanent scowl on his face. Their orders came and the conversation faded out, comments here and there. Izuku pushed his glasses up, thoughts racing through his mind of memories back at the villain's base. The beatings, chemicals, screams of agony filling the toxic air, being trapped in the basement. His heart sped up as he tried to control his breathing as to not alarm his friends. Deku, the fuck's up with you? Katsuki whispered, concern lacing his words as he nudged the greenette. You're shaking. Oh, am I? I am fine, really. Izuku forced a smile on his face, though Katsuki didn't seem convinced. He didn't press any further. Instead, he shoved his food into Izuku's mouth. Izuku didn't protest, instead, accepting the food, knowing that the blonde wasn't good at expressing his feelings well. They finished their food and drinks before paying and leaving the cafe. They headed down the street, chatting happily before Izuku stopped in his tracks, turning his head to an alleyway. Deku, Midoriya, his friends questioned, seeing the emotionless expression on the greenette's face as he stared into the darkness. Isaac. Snap out of it. There's no one there. Come here. Don't listen, just turn away. We're waiting for now. We need to finish what we started. Izuku. Deku. Izuku snapped out of it, turning to Katsuki who was right in his face. The fuck's wrong with you? There's nothing down there. Sorry. I thought I heard something, Izuku said, scratching his neck with a sheepish grin. Geez, damn nerd. Let's just fucking go. Katsuki sighed in annoyance as he grabbed Izuku's hand, pulling him along. Where are you going? Don't you want to have some fun? Izuku glanced back, confusion in his eyes before shrugging it off, pushing the voice's comments to the back of his head. He heard Deku's sigh in relief before he flopped on the mint green lounge. They caught the train and headed home, going their separate ways. Katsuki stuck with Izuku the whole way to his house, keeping a tight grip on his hand. They came to a halt outside Izuku's house, the blonde turning to Izuku and gripping his shoulders. Red eyes gazing into green and golden ones. "Are you alright? You've been acting fucking weird since we left school. What the fuck is wrong?" Katsuki demanded, his eyes burning into Izuku's. Izuku looked away, Katsuki grabbing his face and forcing him to face him. Fine. It's just, when Yukine asked about my scars, some memories came back. You said something about hearing something or shit. I thought I heard one of the villains into the alleyway. Oh, but you did. Izuku swung his head round, eyes wide in fear as they searched the neighborhood. No traces of where the voice came from. In his shaken state, he pulled Katsuki into a tight hug, pushing his face into the blonde's chest. It's here again. I don't know what to do, he stuttered, feeling tears pricking his eyes. Don't fucking cry. I doubt there's anyone out there. Why don't you shut up already? Katsuki froze, feeling a shiver crawl down his spine as the cold wind blew around the duo. He clutched onto the shaking greenette protectively, looking around frantically. Who the fuck are you? He yelled out, setting off small explosions in his hands. You can call me Shigaraki, but that's not important. I'm here to collect what we lost. Izuku's breath hitched, hearing their name. Deka kept ushering reassuring words to the greenette, who closed his eyes tightly. Just give me Izuku and I'll be on my way, no fighting needed. No way in hell, you bastard. I'm not letting you torture him again, Katsuki yelled. Then I guess we'll have to do this by force. A purple portal appeared further down the street, illuminated by a street lamp as a figure covered in dismembered hands stepped out. A mist guy followed, as well as a giant bird-like monster with an exposed brain. The handyman started scratching at his neck, blood-red eyes staring out from the hand covering his face at the two kids huddled together. Izuku froze, staring wide-eyed at the three villains just meters away from him and Katsuki. Now that you've showed yourselves, I'm gonna kick your asses, Katsuki smirked, letting go of Izuku, who hid behind him as he punched his hands together, explosions sprouting out. Noumu, take care of this kid, we only need the green one, handyman ordered, watching the bird launch itself forwards. Ka-chan, dodge, Izuku exclaimed, gripping onto the blonde's uniform as he blasted to the side. You can't kill it, it's too strong, just go for Shigaraki, the one covered in hands. TCH, fine, just hide inside, call the police or some shit, Katsuki said, pushing him inside before blasting over to the two other villains, dodging the Noumu as it launched at him again. Katsuki kept dodging the Noumu, trying to reach Shigaraki. He was slowly losing momentum and speed, panting heavily as he jumped back. Right as he landed, the Noumu punched him hard in the stomach, flinging him back as he spat out blood. Coughing up excess blood, he staggered up to his feet, crimson eyes glaring at the blue beast in front of him. He clenched and unclenched his hands as explosions set off in his palms. Katsuki launched himself forwards, ducking under the Noumu's claw-like hand as it reached out to grab him. He kicked off the ground, sending himself into a spiral of explosions as he neared his target. You're mine, he murmured as he stretched out a hand to Shigaraki's face. Time seemed to slow down as a purple portal appeared, taking his hand in and back round to his own face. He twisted it up, exploding down and away. Time became normal again as he jumped over the Noumu that tried to grab him. He landed, feeling a large hand on his back. He braced himself for impact, but it never came. He looked up at the beast, seeing that it was frozen. His gaze trailed to the house, seeing Izuku staring at the beast, freezing it with his quirk. Katsuki mentally thanked him before rushing out and over to the two other villains. Izuku cancelled his quirk on the Noumu and went to the purple mist, stopping him before he could summon another portal. Katsuki grabbed Shigaraki, dodging his hands that reached out and blasted to the house, pinning him down. Sirens blared in the distance, notifying them that the police were here. Move one muscle and I'll break your arms, Katsuki threatened, tightening his grip on the villain. Just try. I doubt you can without letting me go. Shigaraki spat before his face was pushed into the ground, the hand covering it falling off. Damn brat, Noumu. Katsuki looked up, only to meet with a hand that gripped onto his face. He let go of Shigaraki, setting off explosions as he tried to remove the hand clamped on his face. Shigaraki grabbed his arm, placing 4 fingers before he froze. Izuku burst out of the house, gaze fixated on Shigaraki as he roundhouse kicked him back. He turned his quirk to the Noumu, taking out a switchblade and stabbing it into the exposed brain of the beast. His quirk deactivated as the beast let out a cry of pain, dropping Katsuki and stumbling backwards. The sirens neared closer and closer, but there was no longer any need. The 3 villains got away, a purple mass dispersing, leaving no trace behind. Are you alright, Ka-chan? How's your stomach feel? Can you stand? Izuku bombarded the ash blonde with questions as he checked him over for serious wounds. Shut up, I'm fucking fine, Katsuki replied, coughing more as he heaved out shallow breaths. Think that shitty bird might have crushed my stomach. I can barely feel it. Before Izuku could speak, the police cars rounded the corner. Coming to a halt, officers stepped out and rushed to the two on the ground. Hello, are you two alright? What happened to the villains? An officer asked, kneeling down. Ka-chan's injured, and the villains got away, Izuku answered, helping Katsuki up. One of them had a warping quirk, so they left before you showed up. Alright, thanks for the report. We'll take your friend here to the hospital. Do you have his parents' number or know where they live? They're just down the street. I can take you there. Izuku ran off with the officer behind him, leaving Katsuki to be taken care of by the other police. They reached the Bakugo household and knocked on the door, hearing a "hold on" from the other side. The door swung open as a tall ash-blonde lady stepped out. Hello, ma'am. Could you come with me? The officer asked, watching as a confused and shocked expression crossed her face. There's no problem. Your son just got caught up in a villain attack. Katsuki did, Mitsuki murmured, following after the officer and Izuku back to his house. Katsuki was seated in a car as officers searched round for any evidence of who the culprits might be. Mitsuki ran over to her son, leaning down and wrapping him in a hug. She started to scold him for being reckless before asking what happened. Izuku explained what happened to her and the police, describing what the villains looked like and giving them their names. The police thanked him before taking Katsuki and Mitsuki to the nearest hospital. Izuku headed back inside, locking the door behind him as he entered. That was too close for comfort. I can't believe they found me. What am I supposed to do now? Izuku murmured, pulling at his hair as he walked over to the lounge. Just calm down. Stressing will do you nothing. Easier said than done, Deku. Those villains found me. They'll come back for me. I just know it, Izuku exclaimed, flopping on the soft cushions and turning on the TV. There has to be something that'll put them off my trail or stop them from chasing after me. But what? A new human test subject. But I don't want anyone else to have to go through that pain. What if they won't even settle for something different? What if they continue to chase me and hurt those around me till I give in? What'll happen then if I do the... Izuku snapped out of it, calming himself down and sitting up, placing a hand to his chest. His heart rate slowed back down to normal as he breathed out a sigh of relief. Don't do that. Don't think like that. They won't get you or anyone else. Trust me. Be you but. No buts, you'll be fine. Alright. Izuku gave in with a sigh, listening to Deku as he spoke. His voice calmed him down. He was there for him, even in the darkest times. Izuku's grateful for that, and he's glad that Deku's there by his side. Thanks, Deku. After a few days had passed, Katsuki was out of the hospital better than ever before. He marched proudly down the street with his parents behind him, huge smirk plastered on his face as his eyes were lit like fires. It was as if he found out how to escape a mutual killing game, the way he presented himself. If anyone saw this 9-year-old by himself, they'd probably think he just got away with murder. But he reached home soon enough, inaudible sighs of relief floating around. Hey Hag, what the fuck happened with Deku? Katsuki asked as he turned to his parents, the permanent scowl on his face softening a little. Don't talk to me like that. Mitsuki slapped her son over his head. Ow, fucking hell, Katsuki cursed, clutching his head, the fuck old hag. I just asked you a fucking question. Don't fucking swear. Mitsuki slapped her son over the head again. Masaru heaved out a heavy sigh as he left to the living room, grabbing the newspaper and sitting down. The two ash blondes continued to bicker till they heard a knock at the front door. Katsuki rushed up to it, hoping it'd be Izuku, and swung the door open. It was just the neighbor here to complain about the noise. Shut the fuck up, old man. I don't give two shits. Katsuki slammed the door in the man's face and stomped all the way to his room. Fuck, it's Sunday. Fucking hell is on tomorrow, Shiite. He collapsed down on his bed, ignoring the shouts from his mother, and pushed his face into the soft pillow, groaning. As a wave of tiredness hit him like a brick, he rolled over and stared up at the ceiling, a yawn escaping his lips. The scowl on his face grew as he glared at the ceiling as if it were his enemy. He raised his hand up, grunting before bringing it back down over his eyes. I'm still not strong enough, damn it. The next morning came sooner than Katsuki had hoped. He slammed his hand down on the beeping alarm clock, groaning as he sat up and pulled the blinds open. Not a good idea at 6 in the morning. Hissing, he pulled them close and sat up, stretching. He jumped off his bed and ripped open the closet doors, grabbing the black uniform and heading to the shower. About 7 minutes later, Katsuki was pulling on his school uniform and running down to the dining table. "Took you long enough," Mitsuki commented as she placed the bacon and eggs on Katsuki's plate. "Shut it, hag." After shoving the meal down his throat, he hopped up and rushed to the bathroom to clean his teeth. He fixed his hair and grabbed his bag before running to the door. He pulled on his shoes and left. A quick, "See ya," to his parents. He started walking, slowly turning to jogging, all the way over to the train station where he saw Izuku sitting on a bench, looking bored out of his mind. "Oideku," Katsuki called to his friend, the greenette peeking up at the voice. He turned his head, a large smile spreading across his face as he waved. "Hey Ka-chan, you're finally here. I was starting to get bored." "Not starting to, you looked bored out of your mind already," Katsuki huffed and sat next to his friend who pulled him into a sudden hug. "What the fuck?" "I'm just glad you're okay," Izuku murmured, tightening the hug. He let go, smiling a small smile at the ash blonde. "I was scared something might have happened. Please, don't ever scare me like that again." "No promises there," Katsuki joked, lips curving upwards ever so slightly. "You smiled." Ah, Katsuki's face lit up as he looked away, the scowl making its way across his face again. "You're embarrassed. That's so cute." "Shut it," Katsuki yelled, turning to his giggling friend. That's when he noticed the painfully obvious purple rings below the cheerful greenette's eyes. "Oideku, have you been sleeping? You've got major eye bags." "Huh, oh well, Izuku looked down, scratching the back of his neck. "Guess I was too worried that I didn't get much sleep. Now that you mention it, I'm really tired. Mind if I borrow your shoulder again on the train?" "Fucking hell, don't worry about me so much. You need sleep, you damn nerd," Katsuki replied with a sigh. The train came screeching down the tracks, slowly pulling to a halt. Katsuki grabbed Izuku's hand and dragged him over to the train, stepping on and pushing the greenette to a seat. He sat down next to his friend who fell on his shoulder almost immediately, soft snores escaping his throat. Katsuki heaved out a heavy sigh as he took out his phone, scrolling through Instagram. A few stops after theirs and they were at the school grounds. Izuku was still half asleep, so the ash blonde dragged him all the way into their classroom. He sat him down and took his own seat, watching Izuku completely collapse onto the table face first. "Bakugu, you're finally back." Midoriya was worried sick, Hiyori exclaimed as she ran up to the irritated blonde. "Speaking of which, is Midoriya okay?" He slammed his head directly onto the desk. Otanashi said as he pointed over to the sleeping boy. "He's tired as shit, didn't get any sleep whatsoever," Katsuki replied. "Makes sense. Saw his eye bags just last week, full-blown purple," Kanade said, entering the room and glancing down at the greenette. "Just let him sleep for now. It'd be best that he caught up on sleep. Being sleep-deprived isn't fun at all," Yukain commented. Katsuki zoned out of the conversation, glaring at the wall like it had committed murder. He entered a trance-like state, not even blinking. He continued to stare at the wall till the door opened, the teacher entering with tests in hand. Katsuki only groaned as he knew he'd be in for it. Death is waiting for him and he'd gladly take it than doing this test. It's been 6 years. Izuku and Katsuki have been training together as the years pass by, getting closer and closer to their first goal, getting into the hero course at UA. It was finally the last day of school, and of junior high. Everyone was buzzing, excitement filling the air as they waited impatiently for the end of school. The teacher soon walked in, quieting everyone down as he walked to the front. He placed down a stack of papers as the last few students closed their mouths. "I know you're all excited. It's the end of the school year," the teacher started, looking around the room. "But let's cut this boring stuff. I know you all want to be hero." The teacher threw the papers in the air as everyone started showing off their quirks, except for a certain two. Now, you all have amazing quirks, but no quirk usage in school." "Teach, don't lump me and Deku into this bunch of losers," a certain ash blonde sneered, pointing his thumb to himself and the greenette behind him. "They'll be lucky enough to end up at sidekicks." "Shut up, Bakugu. You're not better than us." "Oh please," Katsuki snickered as he jumped up onto his desk. "We're aiming for UA. We'll be the best damn heroes you'll ever see." "UA? Isn't that the elite school All Might went to? They're seriously gonna try for it. They must be crazy." "Shut up, would ya? We're getting in and not one of ya is gonna stop us," Katsuki declared before slumping back into his seat. Izuku only sighed at his friend's actions, focusing more on the artwork he was currently drawing. "You seem to always be drawing. Don't you have something better to do? All I ever see you do in class is draw, and draw. Come on, man." "Well, sorry for liking to draw. What? Would you rather give full attention to a lecture? No thanks, Izuku replied to the voice in his head. True, no need to be sarcastic, I get it. But while you keep drawing, I'll be watching some All Might movies. I'll spoil them all for you. Don't you dare. Izuku felt Deku's smirk from his head as he grabbed the TV remote and an All Might movie. Izuku quickly ventured into his head, snatching the movie from his counterpart's hands and yeeting it into the pitch-black void that was his mind. He focused back onto the lecture for a moment, before going back onto his drawing. The lessons after went on pretty much the same. Katsuki kept bragging about how he and Izuku were gonna be the best damn heroes ever and don't you ever forget it for most of the lessons. Lunch soon came round and Izuku grabbed his best friend's hand, dragging him away before Katsuki could spout more nonsense. He dragged him up all the way to the roof. Seeing as no one was there. What's up, Deku? You seem rather frustrated. More than usual, Katsuki commented, a snicker at the end of his sentence. What about you? You've been bragging to almost everyone about us being the best heroes. You're way more social than normal, Izuku countered, a smirk crossing his face. Oh, you've fucking done it now, Deku. You just sealed your death wish. Katsuki set off small explosions in his palms, threatening the short boy in front of him. I've sealed my death wish. I think it's the other way round, honey. You're about to die a painful death, Izuku retorted, removing his glasses, though closing his left eye. Ha, don't make me laugh. All you can do is fucking freeze me in time. I, however, can blow your fucking bitch-ass head off your shoulders. Wanna bet? You're gonna die. Izuku's eye shot open, trying to lock onto Katsuki, who blasted himself into the air, shooting down to the greenette below. He shot his arms out in front, large explosions setting off. He blasted back, landing safely on the ground, waiting for the smoke cloud to disappear. Dispersing into the air, Izuku stood strong, arms crossed over his chest as he smirked down at the ash blonde. His left eye glowed bright, the clock inside hitting 12 as time seemed to slow down. Katsuki staggered to his feet, rather slowly thanks to Izuku. Once up, he raised his arms, ready to fight. Oh Ka-chan, it's adorable seeing you try when the fight's as good as over. Izuku punched Katsuki hard in the stomach, time going back to normal as he launched his best friend back a few meters. D-damn you, fucking nerd, Katsuki stuttered slightly as he wheezed, pushing himself off the ground. I won't go down that easily. Izuku covered his left eye, wincing a bit from the aching pain left from quirk usage. He jumped back as Katsuki landed an explosion right in front of him. He took his hand away, keeping his eye closed as he dodged the flying explosions. Ha, out of tricks now, ain't ya? Katsuki laughed, flying over Izuku and elbowing him in the rib. Izuku staggered away, gritting his teeth when he suddenly got an idea. A smirk snaked across his face, sending shiver down the explosion boy's spine. Izuku stood up straight, hair shadowing over his eyes. Katsuki narrowed his brows, launching himself forward with a fist raised. Before he knew it, he was on the ground, immobile. His crimson eyes searched around, meeting with emerald green orbs and a sickly sweet smile. The fuck did you do? He questioned, trying but failing to move his body. A magician never reveals his secrets, Izuku giggled, picking the blonde up. He snapped his fingers and Katsuki could move again. He stretched his limbs, hearing a satisfying pop. They headed back down, finishing the rest of the school day before heading to the gym for the graduation ceremony. Every third year went up and got their certificate, bowing and hearing claps echoing around the large space. It took a little while, but was finally over. Everyone headed home. Izuku and Katsuki taking the long route so they could talk more about their training. We have 10 months till the entrance exam. We have to train as much as possible till then, Izuku said, earning a nod of agreement from the ash blonde beside him. Fuck yeah, and you better promise me that you'll get in. I need someone that I can actually stand, Katsuki replied. Going under a bridge as they talked, they didn't notice the sewer pipe lid rattling behind them. It flung open, a green slimy villain emerging. 2 new meat suits. Pretty powerful quirks too, don't need both. But who to choose? I know, let's go with you. The green sludge lunged forwards, alerting the two in front of him. They jumped away, running back round the opposite direction they came. The sludge rounded on them, throwing his body at Izuku and trapping him. His glasses dropped to the ground, cracking as the villain pried the boy's mouth open and forced his sludge body down his throat as the ash blonde went into attack. Let him go, you piece of shit, Katsuki yelled, propelling himself forwards with explosions and sheer anger alone, outstretching a hand and setting off a larger explosion. The sludge only laughed as the explosions did little but tickle him. He swiped some sludge round, hitting Katsuki and flinging him back into a wall. As he turned back round, he realized his movements came to a halt. His eyes glanced down at the teen in his grip, seeing his golden eye glowing bright. A low growl escaped his throat as he urged his slimy body to move. Katsuki took this chance and blasted himself off the wall, yelling, "Die!" at the top of his lungs as his hands stretched out. Large, loud explosions setting off in the villain's face. Izuku closed his eye, feeling the sludge release him as the villain recoiled back, a pained yell sounding from him. "Don't you fucking dare touch either of us again," Katsuki threatened, more explosions setting off in his palms as a large smirk crossed his face. Izuku froze the villain where he was as Katsuki continued to set of explosions. The greenette took out his phone and dialed up the police, telling them that they had a villain attacking them. In a matter of moments, a few police officers pulled up and ran on over under the bridge. They quickly arrested the villain, thanking the two for capturing him as he'd been on the run for quite some time. Once they left, the boys headed on home, splitting ways. Izuku opened the door, only to be engulfed in a tight hug. He hugged back, a smile forming on his face. Inko let go of her son after a few more moments of hugging. "What took you so long? I was starting to get worried," Inko said as she pulled Izuku inside the house. "I'm sorry, Mom, Ka-chan and I got caught up in a little villain attack," Izuku replied, though told Inko not to worry, seeing a look of concern crossing her face. "We're fine. Really, the police took the villain in. We're all good." Inko breathed out a sigh of relief, though there was a still hint of worry there. She ushered him to the lounge, bringing up the topic of Yue. Inko felt as though if Izuku went, he'd be in even more danger than ever. "I'm really worried and scared for you. I don't want anything to happen," Inko said, grabbing Izuku's hands and squeezing them tightly. "There's no need to worry, Mom, I'll be fine. Trust me, you don't need to worry about me so much," Izuku replied, a soft smile forming on his face as to reassure Inko. "Are you sure? I don't want you getting hurt. I'm just worried for you," Inko asked, earning a nod from Izuku. "Well, you still have 10 months till the entrance exam. I'm guessing you'll be training with Katsuki in that time." "Yep," Izuku smiled at his mom. The topic changed as they engaged in small talk before making dinner. It was a short night, but Izuku was set on his goal. The next morning came by, both Izuku and Katsuki waking up at the crack of dawn. They quickly got ready, stuffing food in their mouths before rushing out to meet with each other. They jogged down to the local beach. Well, what was a beach? It became a trash dump not too long ago. The duo decided to set a challenge. Whoever cleans up the beach the most buys the other food after. Thus their training begun. Days of training turned to weeks, which turned to months. The beach was returning to its once beautiful state. The boys worked and worked, pushing themselves as hard as they could. "It's almost clear. Just 5 months and it's almost done," Izuku exclaimed, stretching his arms and legs as the sun began to set over the horizon. "Of course it wouldn't take long. It doesn't take a scientist to prove this can be done quick," Katsuki replied, watching the sunset. "We should head back soon. The old hag's been on my ass about coming home late." Not surprised, Izuku laughed a bit. "Let's jog around the park for a bit then head home." "We'll finish cleaning this beach tomorrow. Let's fucking go," Katsuki agreed, jogging off with Izuku trailing after him. "Hope you're fucking ready to buy my lunch tomorrow." "Like hell, you're the one gonna be buying my lunch." A smirk crossed Izuku's face as he ran from Katsuki's explosions, laughing as he sprinted away. They ran to the park, circling it a few times before heading back home. They waved each other goodbye as they split, Katsuki jogging further down the street from Izuku's house. Said Greenette entered, greeting his mum before walking to his bedroom. He grabbed a marker from his desk and placed a line over the date on the calendar, writing a small note for tomorrow's date. He set the marker back down and grabbed his PJs, heading towards the bathroom. "Dinner will be ready in a bit," Inko called out to her son as he turned the water on. "Okay, thanks. You're almost done with the beach. It's only been half the time till the entrance exam. What are you gonna do after?" "Well, we haven't really decided. I've been trying to come up with a training schedule to follow, but that isn't really coming together well. What do you think, Deku?" "After whoever buys the other lunch, I'd say go to the nearby library. You need to keep your study up too, you know, and during that time, work on the schedule. Don't forget to include breaks and all that." Alright, don't need you on my back like a mother lecturing her child." Deku snickered a bit. "Still have 5 months to go. This'll be fun." Months have passed, time running out till the entrance exam. The duo have been on a strict training plan, jogging around the beach to the park and back every morning. Hitting the gym at least thrice a week after lunch, quick jog up to an abandoned park where they fought in hand-to-hand combat and trained their quirks. They had later bought small weapons as Izuku's quirk wasn't much for combat. Later at home, they'd do 100 push-ups and crunches. They both bought weights that they use while eating or after they finished studying. They were both prepared for whatever the exam throws at them. Time came the entrance exam, the duo jogging down the street to the train station, buying their tickets and climbing aboard. Once the train pulled up, they waited in anticipation for what would come next. The train pulled up to the next station, the duo leaving and walking up to UA, the giant building's windows glistening in the sunlight. Izuku stared in awe at the building, eyes sparkling behind his glasses as they headed past the giant gates. It's huge, Izuku breathed out, a large, goofy smile spreading across his face. And we're getting in, no matter what, Katsuki smirked beside the happy-go-lucky boy, so hurry your ass up or we'll be late. Izuku ran after his friend, jumping over a kicked-up stone slab in the ground and up the stairs of the building. He caught up to Katsuki and slowed back to a walk, stars still shining in his eyes. They made their way to the announcement room, finding seats and waiting for the announcement to start. The chatter started to die out as lights shone down to the stage below where President Mike stood. Welcome, little listeners, to my show today. Everyone say hey. Silence filled the room, a few coughs heard, much to the hero's disappointment. Not much enthusiasm, I see. Well then, I'll quickly present to you the rundown on the practical exam. Are you ready? Again, the whole room was silent. As it says in the application requirements, you listeners will be conducting 10 minutes of mock urban battles after this. You can bring whatever you want with you. After this presentation, you'll all head to your specified battle centers. The battles will go as followed. There will be 3 kinds of robots you need to destroy, each with a specified point to them. 1 pointers, 2 and 3. You'll destroy these bots and gather up points. Any questions? A tall square brunette stood up, arm shot up straight. Sir, on the sheet handed out there are 4 robots, not 3. If this is a mistake, it's unacceptable. We, as minors, are here to be molded into exemplary heroes. That last robot is the 0 pointer. There's no need to destroy it as it'll gain you nothing. It's there as a decoy. Is that all? President Mike replied. Yes, sir, thanks. The square brunette sat back down. President Mike finished the presentation with a loud, plus ultra, in which everyone had finally replied. Everyone filed out, heading to their assigned battle centers. The duo parted ways with a quick, good luck, you better make it in. Izuku, once reaching a locker room, removed his jacket and hooked up a stretch-out staff, dagger and knuckle brass onto his belt. A small smile crossed his face. He placed the jacket into his locker, as well as his glasses. He closed his left eye, walking out of the locker room and towards his battle center. He exited the building, seeing close to 100 people standing before his battle center, all stretching or just trying to focus. Izuku looked around a bit, seeing the tall square brunette standing close by with his arms straight down at his sides. This'll be harder than I thought, Izuku mentally sighed, trying, but failing to calm his nerves. Jesus Christ, man, you need to chill out, no need to get cold feet. Easy for you to say, you don't have to do any of the fighting. Alright, no need to get sassy with me, just stay calm, don't focus on the other participants, just focus on yourself and destroying these robots. Right. The loudspeaker turned on as President Mike yelled out, start, as the other participants looked around confused. Izuku dashed inside, grabbing his extension staff and whipping it out. The first robot he spotted, a 2-pointer, crossed his line of vision. Loud commotion rung out behind Izuku, but he didn't look back. He jumped high, swinging his staff down with great strength, causing the robot to malfunction and collapse to the ground. Alright, I know what I'm doing, Izuku murmured, rushing after a 1-pointer that was close by, smashing it down from the side. He continued this pattern, taking out his dagger and knuckle brass every now and again, but mainly focusing on using his staff. He battered down the robots, one after the other till he had raked up 38 points. As he moved to his next target, the ground started to shake as a loud bang went off in the distance. All heads swerved to the noise before screaming erupted into the air. Izuku destroyed the robot in front of him before his eyes landed on a giant metal head. His pupil shrunk, mouth hanging agape as he watched the buildings crumble under the giant metal hands of the 0-pointer. Everyone ran past him, no one stopping to look back as the building's debris scattered everywhere. Izuku. Izuku stared in shock, not hearing Deku calling his name. Izuku, snap out of it, get out of there now. Izuku's legs shakily stepped back, one after the other. They threatened to give out under him as he urged his body to move. He closed his eye and mouth, scrunching them up as he turned to leave, but he stopped. A voice in the distance stopped him. He turned his head round, opening his right eye before it landed on a brunette stuck under large pieces of rubble. Help me, please, she pleaded, reaching out as the 0-pointer continued to stomp closer by the minute. Izuku was stuck, unable to find the strength in his legs. he passed out. Shit, guess I'm taking over then. As Izuku's body staggered down, Deku took full control. Finding the strength in his legs that he needed, he leaped forwards, rushing towards the trapped girl. His left eye opened, landing on the rubble trapping her. The golden hue surrounded the debris as it was lifted back up. He reached the girl, picking her up and rushing away to a safe spot. Deku sat her down, leaning her against the concrete wall as he inspected her legs. Left eye closing once more. One broken and the other sprained. This isn't good, Deku thought, turning back to look at the towering robot. A few minutes left, should be enough to destroy it. Stay here, this shouldn't take long. He ran off before the girl could speak, running towards the robot with his dagger in his right hand and staff in his left. The robot's massive fist barreled down, Deku jumping out of the way. The metal fist connected with the ground, dust flying out everywhere. Deku jumped onto the metal fist, running up the arm and up to its head, stabbing his dagger in and carving out a large chunk of metal. With the wires now exposed, Deku jammed his staff in, breaking the wires along the way before jumping back, sliding back down the arm. Explosions went off as he jumped off, landing safely on the ground. He stood up straight, turning and watching the explosions go off, the metal beast collapsing sideways to the ground. Deku walked back over to the brunette who was staring in awe. "Are you okay?" he asked, kneeling beside her. "Why yeah, I'm fine now, thanks." She nodded her head, thanking him. "Time's up." Present Mix's voice rang out loud and clear throughout the battle centers. Recovery Girl came out and started to walk around, giving the participants gummies. She walked over to the duo, Deku explaining what had happened to the brunette. She kissed the girl's forehead, her legs healing almost instantly. Deku had soon left, walking back to the locker room. What happened? "Oh Izu, you're back. You passed out and I had to take control. Don't worry, everything went fine," Deku explained, opening the locker and taking out his jacket and placing his glasses back on. "That's good. Mind if I take my body back now? It's weird just being in here. Now I know how you feel all the time." "Sure." Deku closed his eyes, opening them again as Izuku took back control. "Well, that was fun while it lasted. Ended up taking down the 0-pointer for you." "Really? You'll have to tell me about it later," Izuku said, leaving the room and walking over to the front gates where he found Katsuki waiting for him. "How'd it go, Deku?" the ash blonde asked as they started down the street. "Went fine. Can't wait to hear the results." A week had passed and still no word of the results. Izuku sat idly by on the lounge as he watched the daily news. A new hero had made their debut. Usually, he'd be excited and write down as many notes about the new hero as he could, but now he just waited in anticipation. He was anxious. He had only gotten 41 points. That wasn't enough to pass the entrance exam. Maybe he'd be put into general studies, but Deku had suggested there was another part to the test: rescue points, helping other examiners. It's what a hero's supposed to do, right? The silent room, only disturbed by the quiet TV, comforted the teen as he sat still, staring off into space. The sudden shuffle of feet snapped him out of his concentration as Inko stumbled into the room, a letter in hand. "Aye, Izuku. Aye, it's here. The letter." She shoved the letter to her son, who stared down at it in surprise and anticipation. Thanking his mom, Izuku ran off to his room and shut the door behind him. He walked to his desk, turning on the desk lamp that illuminated the table in its bright light. He sat down, staring down at the letter in his hands before ripping it open. A small disc came out, landing on the table. Confusion swept over Izuku's face before a hologram showed up. "Hello, young Midoriya." All Might booming voice filled the air, scaring Izuku for a split second. "I am here with your results. You passed the written exam, but just missed the mark in the entrance exam." A frown crossed Izuku's face, hearing Deku groan as he collapsed onto the mint green lounge in the empty void of Izuku's head. But the sudden godly yell caught their attention once more. There was a hidden point system. Rescue points. Izuku felt Deku smirk as he listened in on what All Might was saying. "You, my boy, received 60 rescue points, meaning you've passed the entrance exam. Welcome, young Midoriya, to your Hero Academy." The projection shut off, the disc laying flat on the table. The realization sunk in, a wide smile spreading across Izuku's face as he jumped up, cheering. Deku was smiling away as Izuku slammed open his door, hugging his mother, who stood idly by tightly. He kept repeating, I got in, over and over again. Inko's face broke into a large smile as she hugged back. They broke apart as Izuku grabbed his phone, dialing up Katsuki as he jumped up and down excitedly on the spot. I got in, Izuku yelled into the phone, cutting his friend off. "Shut the fuck up, wait, really?" "Yeah, did you get in? You did, right? Izuku couldn't contain his excitement. Hell yeah, I did. How wouldn't I get in? Yes, we're both in. Izuku hugged his mum again as he cheered. I can't wait to see you there. He let go and continued to jump around excitedly. Heck yeah, meeting up tomorrow for training, need to keep it up. Definitely, I'll be seeing you tomorrow then. Bye. Izuku hung up, cheering in delight. The next lot of days flashed by, the duo readying themselves for what Yue was going to throw their way. They woke up, jumping out of their beds and grabbing their new uniforms, showering, pulling on their new uniforms, eating and brushing their teeth, and they were out their doors in a matter of minutes. They met up at the train station, buying their tickets and hopping on the train as it pulled up into the station. Blabbering of excitement left Izuku's lips as he gushed about all the amazing things the duo were about to do. Oh, would you shut the fuck up for 5 minutes? Katsuki punched Izuku over the head, causing the greenette to stumble as he held his head. Sorry, I'm just really excited, Izuku apologized. The train pulled up, the doors opening wide. The duo exited and left the station, heading up the pathway to where the giant building stood. The sun shone down upon the building, making it shine brightly. Izuku stared in awe as they entered the massive building, walking down the halls where few people walked. They found the giant doors of Class 1A. Katsuki slammed the door open, making his grand entrance to the few people who sat idly by. The sudden noise snapped them from their conversations. Standing tall and broad, the ash blonde stepped inside the classroom, strolling to a seat by the window. Strips of paper were stuck to each table, the names of the students printed out on them. Finding his seat, Katsuki collapsed down on it, and brought his legs up, resting them on the table. He's still the same, nothing about him has changed. You can say that again. Izuku's sweat dropped, walking in after the blonde, closing the door behind him before searching for his desk, being right behind his explosive friend. The square brunette from before stood from his desk, walking towards Katsuki who sat in all his glory. He started to lecture the blonde who snapped back with sharp replies. The door opened once again, a cheerful brunette entering with a chippy frog girl by her side. Their eyes landed on the argument between the rash blonde and bossy brunette. The brunette's eyes then trailed back to the greenette behind them. It's you, she announced, bounding over to Izuku with the frog-like girl behind her. Thanks for helping me back at the exam. No problem. It was a hero's meant to do, right? Izuku smiled up at the girl who beamed. But before she could reply, a hoarse voice called out from the doorway, saying, "Settle down and find your seats." All heads snapped towards the tired voice, landing on a yellow sleeping bag that looked like a cocoon. A face appeared at one end, revealing a tired-looking man. He zipped the sleeping bag down, getting out of it before he stood up and walked into the room. He folded the sleeping bag up and set it down on the front table. Everyone still standing found their allocated seats quickly. A few empty seats remained as hurried footsteps echoed from outside. The door slammed open as more students rushed in, taking their seats once seeing the man dressed in black standing at the front. Now that everyone is here, I'm your homeroom teacher, Izawa Shoyuta, and starting off today, we'll be doing a quirk assessment. Head to the locker rooms. Your P uniforms are in them. Meet me outside in 5 minutes. With that, the teacher walked out, leaving the stunned students to their own thoughts. Students of 1A filed out to the field in which their teacher stood patiently. They sorted themselves into 3 lines, facing the teacher as he uncrossed his arms. Alright, now that everyone is here, I'll start the lesson. We'll be doing a practical quirk test, see how good you are at using your quirks. Wait a sec, the brunette called out, a hum in reply from Shoyuta. What about the orientation? Isn't every class meant to be in the gym right now? This is my class and I run it differently. What I say goes. Heroes have no need for an orientation. If you don't care about making progress to become a hero, then leave. Shuta's voice rang low and cold, sending shivers down the students' spines. If you are here to make friends, leave now. I'm here to mold you all into the next generation of heroes. We have no time to muck around having fun and prancing around like princesses. Now, everyone stood attentive, cold sweat running across their foreheads. Bakuga Katsuki, step up. Katsuki walked past the other students, glancing back once before standing in front of their teacher. He was tossed a ball, confusion etching into his face before Shoyuta started speaking again. How far could you throw a ball in junior high? Around 67 feet. Alright, now try with your quirk. Step into this circle and throw it. Katsuki walked into the circle and stretched his arms. He swung his right arm back as he took stance. He blasted the ball out of his hand, yelling, "Die," as he did. It flew through the air, slowly descending to the ground far away from where the class stood. Shoyuta turned a device in his hand round to the class, reading 875.04 feet. Gasps floated around the students as Katsuki walked back. A smug grin spread across his face. He stood by his green-haired friend, arms crossed over his chest as he faced the teacher again. A few students muttered a few things about how this'll be fun and whatnot. Shuta's brows lowered, a shudder sending through the class. Fun, huh? Let's see how fun it'll be when I expel the person in last. You'll all go through a series of mini-tests. First up, 50-meter track, Shoyuta announced, heading over to the short 2-lanes track. The class went 2 by 2, seeing the fastest person being the square brunette named Lita Tenya with his record 2.46 seconds. Next up was grip strength. A 6-armed guy named Shoji Mizo scored highest with 480 kilos. Standing long jump came next. Katsuki scored highest with his explosions propelling him forwards. Ball throw was next up. The brunette from before, now named Uraraka Achiko, scored infinite. Time to test this out. Hopefully this works, Izuku thought as he stepped up next, catching the ball thrown to him. Whose throw are you gonna rewind to? I was thinking Kachan's. He did get quite far after all. Izuku opened his left eye that had sat closed since changing. A golden hue surrounded the ball as it slowly lifted into the air. Izuku thoughts back to Katsuki's throw, the clock in his eye clicking at 12. A larger transparent clock image appeared in front of his eye, a magic circle. It shone bright, golden light shining down upon Izuku as the ball shot forwards, a small explosion trailing after it as it shot out into the air. It started to descend, hitting the ground far away from where everyone stood. The device in Shuta's hand read 875.04 feet, the same as Katsuki's. A whistle escaped Izuku's lips as he looked at the score, rewinding time so the ball landed back in his hand. That worked better than last time, huh? Izuku murmured, hearing a hum in reply from Deku though. I feel if I practice enough, then it'll get better and easier to use. Guess I'm gonna steal Kachan from Auntie again. He walked back to the class, tossing Shoyuta the ball as the rest of the class filed through the ball throw. Up next came a flexibility test. As most of the students focused more on muscle than flexibility, they struggled a bit. The last test came up, the repeated sidestep. A little student, looking like he's in grade school, Mineta Minoru, scored highest. The class grouped back up as Shoyuta tallied up the scores, a projection showing up from the device that sat in his hand. In last place was Minoru. Oh no, I'm gonna be expelled, he cried, pulling at his face. In a normal circumstance, I wouldn't actually expel you. I just wanted you all to use your quirks to the fullest, Shoyuta started, a wave of relief washing over the small boy. But an icy glare shot through the small boy. After all the reports and records I've seen on you from public acclaims to teachers, I expel you from my class. Don't even know how you managed this far. Grab your things and leave. Minoru ran off, tears leaking from his eyes as he disappeared back into the school. A few students cast glances back at the boy as he ran off. Shoyuta started to head off, saying, "Class dismissed." As he left, the students all cast weary looks to each other before filing after their teacher. They headed to the locker rooms and changed back out of their gym uniforms into their regular ones. Why Deku, notice you used my throw earlier. Getting better at that specific rewinding, Katsuki commented as the students filed out of the locker rooms. Yeah, I need more practice though. My eye still hurts afterwards. But that's to be expected. Izuku chuckled a bit, a sheepish grin crossing his face. But man, can our teacher go from 0 to 100 real quick. Better not piss him off. Ha, if you think he can go bad shit fast, you've got another thing coming, Katsuki smirked at his friend. Yeah right, once I come out, he'll be cowering in his boots. I could have gods on their knees in no time. Oh really now, why not show me just how terrifying you can be later? TCH, you'll be regretting that soon. Collapsing down on S lounge, a sigh escaping his lips, Shoyuta stared up at the ceiling. He tilted his head down, gaze landing on the stack of papers laid out on the coffee table. His eyes scanned the words printed on the top, Bakudo Katsuki. He rolled his eyes, placing a hand to his face as he sighed, regretting his decision on becoming a teacher. Guess I'd better look through these, he murmured, sitting up straight and grabbing the first document on Katsuki. Name Bakudo Katsuki. Age 15. Quirk, explosion. Junior school, Alderete Junior High. Short-tempered. Doesn't cooperate. Dislikes almost everyone. Will explode, literally. Almost always mad. Oh boy, this is gonna be a fun year, Shoyuta mentally sighed in defeat, rubbing his temples. Let's see who's next. Midoriya Izuku. Name, Midoriya Izuku. Age 15. Quirk, clockwork. Junior school, Alderete Junior High. Seems cheerful most of the time. Will cooperate with almost anyone if asked. Went missing at age 5, found 3 years later. Was given his quirk by villains. Has an occasional panic attack. Will panic if he hears words related to test, experiment, or others. Doesn't talk about what happened. That's 2 problem children already, and they're the first ones I looked at. This class will be the death of me. Grumbling, show you to check through the rest of the documents. Looking over each student in his class. Yep, if I don't make it through the year, I'm sure Yamada will know why. That brat from before is back again. He's the one I rescued. Surprising I still remember him. Shoyuta groaned, leaning back into the lounge as he slammed the papers back down. This is gonna be one heck of a year. Ringing loudly through the halls and classrooms, the bell signaled to every student and teacher that it was lunchtime. All students packed their bags as quick as possible, some taking out bentos, others grabbing money to buy their lunch. But all in all, everyone rushed out to escape their teachers for just enough time to relax and eat. Class 1A was no different, the whole class silently cheering that they don't have to listen to ectoplasm's mathematics anymore. Izuku grabbed his bento and his best friend's hand, dragging him out and away from the others to get to the cafeteria faster. He didn't want to push past the lunch line that was hastily forming. Wanting to just find a table in the far back corner and be antisocial. Whoa, damn Deku, you really don't want to interact with anyone, huh? Katsuki stated, sitting down next to his friend who started to scoff down his lunch. I didn't want to get caught up in that lunch line of death there. The other students seemed to be stuck, and yeah, you know I get shy around new people. I may try to act tough and confident, but you know me. The greenette looked down, taking the chopsticks from his mouth and placing them over his bento. Heaving out a heavy sigh, Katsuki's eyes bore into Izuku's head like drills. Well, if you keep this up, you'll never truly meet anyone. Do you want to be fucking closed off for your whole life? Like you can talk, I swear. The only people I've seen you hang around, besides me, were your so-called followers back in junior. Even they were afraid of you. They only stuck by you so they wouldn't become the next targets on your never-ending list of people you want to kill. Izuku shot back, sighing as he took another bite from his bento. Also, I could feel people staring at my scars. They were staring since the moment we entered the classroom. Do you know how uncomfortable that feels? Don't start having a fucking panic attack on me now. I don't want another incident happening, Katsuki commented. The greenette slowly nodded his head, eyes falling to the table. His friend brought up another topic as the duo ate. Over by the cafeteria entrance, a few from their class managed to push through the lessening lunch line, pushing through till they were free on the other side. A redhead's eyes landed on the duo sitting in the far back corner. He elbowed his blonde friend next to him, slightly turning his head towards him before nodding towards the duo. They walked over with bentos in hand, reaching the lone table and tapping the ash blonde's shoulder. Hey man, mind if we join you? The redhead asked, gesturing to his friend beside him, then to the seat in front the hothead. I don't give 2 fucks. Go ahead, Katsuki replied with a huff, looking over to his friend who was trying to form a smile. The newcomers sat down across from the duo, opening their bentos and taking a bite, engaging in small talk with the ash blonde and greenette. Izuku's head started to swirl as his wobbly smile tried to stabilize. Man Izuku, you really don't want to interact with others. What happened to you? Did Ka-chan rub off on you? Oh, shut up Deku. People change over time. You should know this. You've been with me all this time. Izuku mentally sighed, listening to the two who joined the table. I'm not sure what to do or say. Oh, we forgot to introduce ourselves, the blonde suddenly said. I'm Kaminari Denki. It's nice to meet you. I'm Kirishima Ejiru. Nice to meet you. The redhead smiled a toothy smile, sharp teeth like that of a shark's revealing themselves. Izuku glanced to his friend quickly who didn't seem to want to introduce himself, so the greenette did it for him. I'm Midoriya Izuku, and that's Bakugo Katsuki. And yet here you say that you've changed, man Izuku, and here I was starting to believe you for a second. I knew the same old you were still in here. You can't fool me. Oh come on Deku, it's just a damn introduction. There's nothing that special about it. Izuku heard Deku's sigh as he flopped into a pool. So, what's your guy's quirks? Mine's hardening. I can harden any part of my body. Ejiru showed off his quirk, his arm turning into what looked like rocks. Mine's electric. Pretty self-explanatory, though. If I use too much electricity, then I become brain dead. Denki sheepishly scratched the back of his neck, wobbly smile spreading across his face. Those are cool quirks. Mine is called clockwork. It's what affects my left eye. Izuku pointed to his eye that slowly ticked forwards. If, say, someone threw something into the air, if my eye lands on it, it'll rewind time on that object, taking it back to the person who threw it. The two in front of him looked intrigued, stars appearing in their eyes. I can also slow down time or freeze people where they are as long as I don't blink, though. It hurts my eye afterwards and leaves it useless for a bit. That's so cool, the duo exclaimed, goofy smiles spread across their faces as they leaned forwards. It really isn't all that MEC. No way, dude, Ejiro cut Izuku off, hands slamming down onto the table. Being able to freeze time on someone or slow down time, that's amazing. You'd be able to stop villains before they can do anything. He is right, you know. I guess so. The duo continued to present examples in which Izuku's quirk would be most useful in, bringing Katsuki into the conversation as well. They all continued to talk until the bell rung out for their next lesson. I'm coming in like a normal person, a booming voice from none other than All Might yelled out as the classroom door slammed open, the No. 1 hero swinging in. The class immediately erupted into chaotic cheers. Almost everyone was standing and cheering while the few others just sat still and quiet. All Might walked over to the front desk, glancing down at their homeroom teacher bundled up in his sleeping bag. The tall, broad man turned to the class, his smile as big and bright as ever. His booming voice soon filled the room once more as he spoke. Bright blue eyes in a sea of black glancing over the many heads of the students. Good morning, everyone. Today will be your first day training to become a hero. More cheers erupted from all corners of the room. You've all submitted forms on what your hero costume will look like, and I'm pleased to say that they've all turned out wonderful. He pulled out a small remote with a large red button on it. Pressing the button, suitcases started to pop out of the walls, each labeled with a number. You'll find that your suitcase has the same number as your desk. Quickly change and head out to Fake City 3. I'll be waiting for you all there. With that, the No. 1 hero left the classroom. Everyone jumped up and grabbed their suitcases, rushing down the halls in noisy fashion to the locker rooms. Izuku grabbed the locker he used before and opened it. He opened his suitcase and pulled out his hero costume. He lifted it down, grabbing the sleeves of the shirt and holding it out. A small smile crossed his face as he placed the top, hoodie and pants in the locker. He removed his shirt and pulled the new one on, feeling the soft fabric cover his scarred skin. He pulled the jacket over the shirt, fiddling with the hood a bit. Changing into his pants, he noticed a sash in the suitcase and a ticking noise coming from underneath it. He reached down and grabbed the sash, finding a small clock laying at the bottom of the case. They included a clock, huh? And it actually works. It's kinda like the one in your eye, a bit creepy, but it might come in handy. That's true. Izuku clipped the clock to his jacket, fixing it so it sat on the left side of his chest. There's still more in here. How much though? A belt scarf, a sash and white gloves. A leg strap with a case holder as well. Huh, man, did they include a lot. Izuku took everything out, leaving nothing left. A paper lay at the bottom of the suitcase, a picture of the complete costume drawn on it. Not bad. Oh shit, we better hurry, we gotta go now. Right. Izuku pulled the scarf around his neck, gloves pulled onto his hands and sash tied around his arm. Welp, let's get going. He left with the few other stragglers, heading out to the fake city where most of the class stood attentive. All Might stood at the center in all his glory, looking over the class as he watched the remaining students join the group. Alright, now that everyone is here, it's time to start. I'll put you all into groups of 2 and on either team heroes or villains, the hero explained. He started to sort the class into groups, Izuku teaming up with Momo on Team E. It seems we have an odd number, he muttered, placing a finger to his chin. Aoyama, you join Team G. Now then, the goal for the heroes is to either capture both villains or touch the bomb planted in one of the rooms. The villains can hide the bomb wherever they want. The first 2 teams to fight will stay down here while everyone else joins me in the camera room. He pulled out a card each from 2 boxes labeled heroes and villains. Hero Team A and Villain Team E. Please step aside. Villain Team, you have 5 minutes to plant the bomb and plan before the heroes storm in. All Might took the other students away, leaving the 2 teams to plan. Izuku and Momo headed inside the building allocated to them. Finding a giant bomb waiting for them, they grabbed it and trudged upstairs to the 5th floor. They set the bomb down in a corner before turning to each other. The hero team outside, consisting of Katsuki and Ejiro, turned to each other as Katsuki basically commanded the redhead on what to do, while the villain team started to work on an actual plan. So, how are we gonna do this? Izuku asked, watching as Momo placed a hand to her chin, deep in thought. Well, we'll need someone to watch the bomb while the other fends off the heroes, though, in that sense, it'd be 2 against 1, giving them the upper hand. Momo started, a light hum leaving her throat. But we could also line this room with traps so if one of them gets past, they should be an easy takedown. Tima, both Ka-chan and Kirishima. They have both power and strength. Kirishima will most likely be the tank to block incoming attacks while Ka-chan fights the attacker. In that sense, we need a counter to Kirishima's hardened skin while avoiding Ka-chan's explosions. For him, we need long-range attacks, something like a bow or staff. But Kirishima would also be attacking, so we need to counter that as well. If we can take down Ka-chan first and tape him up, then we could tag team Kirishima and tie him down too. If one of us could hold Kirishima back while the other takes care of Ka-chan, then we should be in the clear. Midoriya, you're mumbling, Momo said, placing a hand on Izuku's shoulder. His face flushed red in embarrassment as he stumbled on his words. Sorry, guess old habits don't die down, huh? He scratched the back of his neck before a serious look crossed his face. Your quirk is creation, correct? Momo nodded. Could you, by chance, make me a long staff? The hero team entered the building once the 5 minutes were up, keeping together no matter how much Katsuki complained. The duo found the stairs to the second story, looking every which way to see if they can spot the villain team. They moved up the stairs and across the marble, concrete flooring, listening for any sounds. Katsuki, who had taken the lead, turned his head back to his partner, a thin line forming from his lips. His partner, Ejiro, was looking around frantically, beads of sweat forming on his forehead as he tried to focus on the task at hand. The second flight of stairs, leading to the third flood, appeared before them. It's quiet, far too quiet. Something is going to happen soon. That nerd's got a plan and he's waiting for us to fall into it. A smirk crossed the ash blonde's face as he peered over the top of the stairs. Whatever that T-nerd's gonna do, I'll counter it and blow his face up. Silence filled the hallway leading down to the next flight of stairs, only disturbed by footsteps from the heroes. A sudden thud made them stop, brows furrowing as they stared ahead of them. An almost inaudible laugh fluttered down the hallway, sending shivers up their spines. Katsuki clenched his fists and grit his teeth, glancing to his teammate who stood in battle stance, ready for a fight. The laughter continued, seeming to get louder and louder, almost silent footsteps following. A shadow cast down the hallway, alerting the hero team. A clunk of metal on cement echoed in between the laughter as the shadow stretched out. The laughter came to a sudden halt, as did the thudding of feet. Katsuki and Ejiro stood still, eyes fixated on the figure casting the shadow, clenching their fists, quirks activating. They all stood still, waiting for the other to make their first move. An image of a transparent clock formed from where the villain stood, the long hand stick striking 12. Time slowed down, a flicker of green passing the heroes before they found themselves on the ground. Now Yaoyorozu, Izuku yelled out, jumping back over the heroes as they struggled to stand back up. A long string of tape was fired from a bow, another flying behind it. Izuku ducked under the tape watching as the heroes jumped to their feet and to the hallway walls, avoiding the tape. Katsuki shot forwards, flying towards Izuku with his explosions. The greenette held his staff in front of him, left eye closed as his right narrowed down. Katsuki battered into the staff, kicking Izuku in the gut and sending him away. He landed on his feet as Ejiro rushed past him, arms hardened as he struck Izuku's staff. Momo created a shield from her arm, rushing forwards and blocking Ejiro's next attack. Izuku skidded to the side, running down to Katsuki who had propelled himself forwards. He met the long sliver staff that swung down on his shoulder, sending him to the ground. He kicked himself up, swinging his leg round and tripping the greenette. Katsuki grabbed his hoodie and pulled him up, an explosive fist meeting his chest. Coughing away, Izuku flung his legs up and kicked Katsuki off him, using the staff to balance himself once more. Swinging it round, it collided with Ejiro's rib, causing the redhead to stumble a bit. Momo used that chance to hit him down to the ground, grabbing the tape from her belt. She was too slow as Ejiro ripped the tape from her hands, pushing her off him. Forget about fighting, shitty hair, just go and find the weapon. I'll deal with these two, Katsuki yelled, dodging a flying kick from Izuku. Ejiro nodded as he sped off, rushing up the third flight of stairs to find the hidden bomb. Momo opted to follow him, but decided against it to help her teammate. She turned to see the two in hand-to-hand combat, bruised arms and legs aiming to knock each other down. She pulled a second staff from her arm, rushing forwards and swinging at the ash blonde's back. Katsuki jumped back just in time, but soon found himself frozen in midair. His crimson eyes glared down to his friend, seeing his clock-like eye glowing bright. Damn you, Deku! I would have had you, Katsuki growled through gritted teeth, trying but failing to clench his fists. I doubt that, Ka-chan. My quirk was in cooldown, but even if Yaoyorozu didn't step in, I would have been able to freeze you here anyway. Izuku smiled sweetly at his scowling friend. Yaoyorozu, will you do the honors of tying him up? Certainly, Momo caught the tape thrown to her and started to tie the struggling blonde up, placing him on the ground once done. Now then, let's see if our trap worked. Izuku released his quirk, a big grin on his face as he nodded. The villain team duo rushed away, Izuku waving to his friend before they vanished up the stairs, leaving the blonde to curse with all his might. The duo rushed down the hallway and up the stairs, slowing to a jog as they passed by the empty rooms. Finding the bomb room, they entered to see Ajiru covered in mouse traps and struggling to find the bomb. Izuku and Momo had to hold in their laughter at seeing their classmates struggling in mouse traps. The greenette strolled over to the redhead, holding a roll of tape. Ajiru noticed Izuku and backed away, only to trigger more mouse traps that were scattered all around the room. Izuku nodded to Momo, who started to walk forwards. They circled the redhead and soon tied him up before opting to remove all the mouse traps that littered his skin. Villain team wins. All Might's booming voice soon filled the once silent air, the villain team duo cheering at their win. But where was the bomb? It's not in here, Ajiru asked as the duo removed the tape and last mouse trap. Follow me. Izuku helped him up and guided him to the window, a confused look crossing the redhead's face. Once at the window, Izuku pointed up to the next floor, seeing the bomb taped down to the concrete walls. Ajiru's mouth fell open as Izuku chuckled, saying, "We put it there in case someone got past us. Using both our quirks, Yayorozu and I managed to stick it up there without problem." "YUWA." Ajiru cut his sentence short as he stared at the giggling greenette in front of him. "It was all his plan, and it seems it worked without problem," Momo said, high-fiving Izuku as they cheered once more. They got the bomb back down and went back to save Katsuki from his boredom before leaving the building. They made their way to the room where their classmates and All Might awaited. "Well, that went better than I expected." "It did, huh? Well, I'm just happy we won, though. Ka-chan seems to be out for blood now that he's lost to me. I'd just avoid him for now. Let him cool off. Besides, it's party time. You literally just won with someone you barely even know. You used both her quirk and yours to win. That's an achievement for you, seeing as you don't want to interact with anyone." "Oh, shut up, Deku. Hey, I'm just stating the facts here." "No matter. Maybe I should take some mental notes of the other battles. Might come in handy later." Fight after fight, hero team versus villain team. The exercise caused the students to work with people they've known for only a few hours, some with friends from junior high. The final fight between Lita Tenya and Uraraka Achiko, the hero team, and Ishido Mina and Sato Rikido, the villain team, came to an end with the hero team winning. Loud blaring ringing rung out, signaling to the teachers and students that their next lesson was starting. All 1A students left for the locker rooms, some heading straight to the infirmary to treat their injuries. Izuku changed back into his formal uniform with the rest of his class and headed down to his classroom, entering to find Cementos waiting patiently for his class. "Cementos, huh? He teaches modern literature, right? I'm waiting to hear all the groans from the others." To be expected when literature is one of the most boring subjects we're taught. Too bad for them. This'll be harder for them than for us. Izuku silently chuckled, heading to his seat as the echo of groans sounded out from the door. A small smile crossed his face as he pulled out a book, turning to the back page and started drawing. His classmate filed in, collapsing into their seats, most huffing and sighing in boredom and annoyance while others kept quiet. Cementos's voice ran out loud and clear, grabbing the attention of almost everyone in the room, sans a few that sported dead, blank looks. He picked up a marker and began to write on the board. A jumble or words pooling out of his mouth as he wrote. "This'll be a long lesson, huh? At this rate, that's a definite." Izuku huffed out a sigh as he flipped back to a blank page, writing down the notes Cementos wrote on the board. "School's out. Pack your things and you're free to go." Present Mick's voice filled the room with enthusiasm, making the students wonder how anyone could tolerate the loud and obnoxious teacher. "Hey Ka-chan, wanna see if you can come over?" Izuku asked his hot-headed friend as he placed his notebooks in his bag. "I'm sure the old hag wouldn't give two fucks, so sure." Katsuki shrugged his shoulders as he stood up, swinging his bag onto his shoulder. "Let's get going. Don't wanna miss the damn train." Izuku nodded as he followed after his friend, trudging out the door and down the corridors to the large glass door exit. The duo were about to leave school grounds when two voices made them halt and turn their heads, one with confusion and the other scowling. The redhead Ajiru and blonde Denki came rushing out of the school building, waving their hands as they caught up to the duo. They skidded to a halt, catching their breath as goofy smiles spread across their faces. "Thanks for waiting. We thought we'd lost you both. You left before everyone else," Ajiru huffed, smiling at the greenette and ash blonde. "We would have stayed back if you asked," Izuku said, hearing a "maybe you but not blondie over there" from Deku. Denki turned to his redhead friend, then back to the duo in front of him. I guess we should have said something. But we didn't. He sheepishly scratched the back of his neck, head tilting to the side a bit. Anyway, you headed for the train station. The group started to walk off school grounds, Izuku nodding to Denki's question. As they turned down the street, chatter filled the air as they walked, annoying the heck out of Katsuki as he grumbled quietly to himself. They headed to the station and bought their tickets, waiting for the train to pull up. In just a few minutes it was there, doors open as the people at the station flooded in. Why the fuck are there so many people? This ain't Rush Friday. What, is there a huge fucking sale somewhere that's begging all these people to come? Katsuki exclaimed, finding a seat and dragging his friends down with him. Man, I wish I could teleport right now, wouldn't have to deal with all this shit. If I had $1 for every time I hear you swear, I'd be rich. Now that's a quirk I want. Izuku snickered, wincing a bit when Katsuki slapped him over the head, scowling at his green-haired friend. Aw, come on, I'd share with you, seeing as you're giving me the money anyway. TCH. Whatever, now you're just trying to be greedy, Katsuki muttered as he sat down. I mean, it would be a cool quirk, not useful in fighting, unless you pay the villains to turn themselves in. Denki trailed off into a murmur as he pondered. It would still be useful in other situations. See, at least someone agrees with me, Izuku said, fist bumping the blonde. Katsuki huffed a sigh of frustration, shaking his head at his best friend's antics. He turned his head to the window behind him, watching the scenery as his friends chattered amongst themselves. He watched as the buildings merged together, a soft sigh escaping his lips. He closed his eyes, the noise around him falling away into white noise as he sat there. The greenette noticed his friend falling asleep, a small smile plastered on his lips as he turned back to his new friends. They finally made it to their station, the group getting off, Izuku dragging Katsuki off. Before parting ways, Izuku slung his friend's right arm over his neck, supporting him with a hand on his waist as he carried the blonde off. You're a lot heavier than I thought, Ka-chan, Izuku muttered, hearing a quiet, shut up, from his tired friend. He giggled lightly as he trudged off, head tilted up to watch the colors streaked across the sky start to fade away with the sun. It's been one eventful day, hasn't it, Deku? You can sure say that again. I'm just glad it's finally over. All those lessons mashed together, plus the new hero training program to add as well. It's just so much. PE was already annoying enough. Now it's like we have 2 PE lessons a fucking day. It sucks, man. It may appear that way to you, but to me, it's all just one big stepping stone to the end goal. You'll see when we get there. Until then, you're just gonna have to bear with it, seeing as you're stuck with me, Izuku retorted, heading Deku's sigh in agitation as he collapsed onto the mint green lounge. Just bear with it for now. If you complain like this forever, we'll never get anywhere, so just sit up and listen. A week had flown by the students of UA. Quickly, a new dawn awaiting them. Izuku jumped out of bed, slamming his hand on his alarm clock before ripping open his closet door. Snatching his uniform, he rushed to the bathroom and cleaned himself up. The greenette bolted down the stairs and to the kitchen table, practically inhaling his breakfast before washing his plate. He bounded back up the stairs, grabbing his bag and phone as he rushed back down. Slow down, sweetie. There's no need to rush, Inko said, passing her son his lunch. I know you're going on a small school trip, but you don't have to rush. Izuku stuffed his lunch into his bag before rushing to the door, pulling on his bright red shoes. I know. I'm just really excited. We're going to the UST. I've heard about it so many times and now I finally get to go there. Plus, Ka-chan's been bugging me since I woke up to get out the door. He jumped up onto his feet, running over to his mom and planting a kiss on her cheek. I'll be going now. Bye. Inko waved him off as he bolted out the door. Izuku's eyes landed on his best friend who stood idly by on the pathway, scrolling through Instagram on his phone. He glanced up, crimson eyes meeting Viridian green. He huffed out a sigh, placing his phone in his pocket, and walked off, Izuku slowing to a walk beside him. Chatter erupted from Izuku as he excitedly commented about the UST, only quieting when Katsuki slapped his head. They ventured into the train station and brought their tickets, waiting by for the train to come in. Katsuki brought out his phone and earplugs, pushing them into his phone and turning on some music. He passed the bud to Izuku, who happily accepted. Wide smile spread across his face. They stood in silence, music blasting in their ears as the train screeched down. They boarded, finding seats and sitting down. They stayed silent all the way to UA, leaving the station and heading up towards the giant building. They entered and headed straight for their classroom. They found the rest of their classmates chatting excitedly about the trip. The duo sat down at their desks, turning to each other as Izuku started gushing again. Everyone, quiet down. Aizawa entered the room, heading up to the front as his class settled down. Everyone, suit up. As you all know, we're going to the USJ. Once you're all suited, we'll be boarding a bus to the place. Now scram. We don't have all day. He soon left, the suitcases pulling out of the wall. Everyone grabbed their suitcase, changed quickly and headed over to the buses quickly, excited to get there. The class president, who was chosen on the third day of school, Tenya, tried to get everyone to seat in class order, only to find out the bus style didn't fit his plan. On the way to the USJ, the class talked about their quirks, seeing whose was the flashiest and other capabilities they had. The bus soon stopped, Aizawa calling everyone off the bus. They all bounded off, excitement radiating off them. They entered the USJ, seeing another hero there, that being 13. Good morning, students, they greeted as the students and Aizawa entered. Welcome to the USJ, or as I call it, the unforeseen simulation joint. Most of the students started to cheer, while others stayed silent. Here you'll all conduct rescue missions in teams. The USJ has many different disaster zones, ranging from the flood zone, landslide zone, conflagration zone, and many more. Aizawa, have you already chosen teams? Aizawa turned to the class, but not before whispering something to 13. The teams and zones are Moyama, Uraraka, Ashido and Shoji in the landslide zone, Ajiri, Tokoemi, Shiro and Ojiro in the flood zone, Sato, Koda, Jairu and Hagakure in the conflagration zone, Yayorozu, Todoroki, Kaminari and Lita in the ruins zone, Midoriya, Bakugo and Kirishima in the mountain zone. Head off now, there will be robots acting as civilians that need help. Rescue as many as you can in half an hour. You have 5 minutes to make a plan before you start. Go now. Everyone nodded, heading off in their groups to their zones, forming plans along the way. We need to look out everywhere as rouge rocks may fall and hit us or these civilians. Izuku started, earning nods from his teammates as they came to a halt in front of the mountain zone. We'll split into medic, rescuer and defender. Any preferences? Well, I'm the fucking defender. I will fucking explode whatever I can get my hands on, Katsuki smirked, punching his hands together while setting off small explosions. Guess I'll take medic, I guess, Ejiro said, though a bit hesitant. So that leaves you on rescue, though. I think we should swap parts every 10 minutes. Good idea. Well, let's get this started. Izuku agreed with a nod, the trio heading up the mountain cliff side, Ejiro in the lead as he looked around for any civilians. He spotted a few laying trapped under large boulders, calling out for help. They actually look more like people than I thought they would. He went down with Izuku while Katsuki stood by, helping push the boulders off the civilians. They picked them up, holding them on their backs as they headed back down the mountainside. The group set up a medic camp, laying the civilians down to rest. Ejiro stayed with the civilians, making sure they were fine as Izuku and Katsuki went back up. They found another civilian. Izuku pried the boulder off and helped them up onto his back, Katsuki blowing up a few large rocks that fell from above, closing in on the greenet. As Izuku headed down the mountain, more rocks were kicked up, following after him. He kicked off the mountain as he neared the bottom, landing safely at the medic camp, placing the civilian down. How's it going down here? Izuku asked, glancing back at the mountain at Katsuki who was blowing up flying rocks. It's going fine. Maybe check higher up or around the sides. I'm sure that there are more around those areas, Ejiro replied, waving his friend off as he headed back up. The groups all rotated around a few times, switching disaster zones. Shoyuta called everyone back in for a break, watching them all collapse in the center. The teachers grabbed the students' bags and chucked them over. The class all grabbed their bags and pulled out their lunches, stuffing their faces to reduce their hunger. Sighs of relief floated around as some flopped over to lay on the ground while others leaned on each other for support. Hey Ka-chan, Izuku asked, earning a hum in response from his tired friend who leaned on his back. Once this is over, you want to head out to the new cafe. It sounds really good and I want a treat after all this. Sounds fucking good. This whole thing is gonna fucking kill me soon, Katsuki replied, stuffing his face as he wiped sweat from his forehead. I'm gonna ask the hag if I can stay over. You up for another movie marathon? Got some more fucking shit movies to watch, starting to pile up in the living room. Heck yeah, the last movies were just fucking great. Yeah, they were dumb, but they were funny as hell because they were so stupid. Izuku smiled, nodding his head with a hum. Sounds great. The class, now all rested up and full, stood up with new energy radiating from them. Shoyuta assigned the groups to their next disaster zone, only to cut short when a swirling mass of purple and black caught his eye. He glanced over at 13 who had also caught sight of the mass. He swung around, gripping his scarf tightly as he opened his mouth, ready to order his students to run at any given moment. The swirling mass of purple and black started to expand out, a hand reaching out, It swatted to the side as a man dressed in black and covered in hands stepped out, bulky mutant villains stepping out after him. "Everyone, head back up to the entrance, now," Shoyuta yelled as he and 13 stepped in front of the kids. "13, you follow them. We don't know what these guys are capable of. Now run." The class staggered back, running up the stairs in haste with 13 in tow. All but 2 students ran. Tenya glanced back, coming to a halt when seeing Izuku and Katsuki standing still. He opened his mouth to yell out to them when he caught sight of Izuku shaking. Seeing Katsuki trying to pull him along, Tenya rushed down, placing a firm hand on Izuku's shoulder, startling him. He went to tell them to follow the rest of the class when a scratchy voice stopped him. "Ah, this is where you've been." He turned towards the villain covered in hands, his blood-red eyes peering out from the hand over his face glistening in glee. "It's been a while, hasn't it, Izuku?" Tenya whipped his head to his classmate, seeing his face clouded in fear. He was struggling to move, arms and legs shaking uncontrollably, eyes as wide as saucers as his pupils shrunk down. The brunette looked up to the ash blonde, a stern look crossing his face as the blonde looked back up at him. They both grabbed one of Izuku's arms each, dragging him with them back up the stairs as Shoyuta started to attack the villains. Izuku froze in his friend's hold on him, watching as Shigaraki sent the purple and black mass up to them. He tried to scream out, but his voice was caught in his throat. He looked back at his friends, watching a portal appear in front of them. He mustered up strength in his arms, pushing his friends away as he fell into the portal. It closed up, the greenette disappearing within the purple and black mass. Shock soon left Katsuki as he processed what happened. He screamed. Tears pricked the corners of his eyes till his emotions turned to pure rage. His hands crackling with explosions, he turned to the purple and black mass that had started to retreat back to the center of the plaza. He fired up explosions in his palms, launching himself forwards as he yelled in anger. His eyes caught onto a metal plate hidden in the warp gate. He grabbed the plate, setting off explosions as he slammed it into the ground, repeatedly punching the metal. "Give him back, you fucking bastards," he screamed, ignoring the tears falling from his eyes as he continued to bash the plate in, not caring about the pain he may be causing. "Give him back." He jumped back in time to see his massive hand reaching out to grab him. He exploded his way back over, slamming his fist into the mutant's face and launched him back, tears streaming down his cheeks. He ignored the calls from Tenya to stop, only focusing on beating up the villains who've taken his best friend away from him once more. As he headed into the heat of battle between villains and his teacher, a few students decided to head down to aid them. Shudo launched a mountain of ice down, freezing some villains in place as he, Ejiro, Mina and Tsuyu followed suit. They rushed down the stairs, joining Tenya and ignoring 13's calls to stop. They started to attack the surrounding villains, avoiding as many hits as they could while watching each other's backs. They continued to fight until almost all the villains were immobilized, laying on the ground unconscious or frozen. They all turned to the hand-covered villain, watching as he scratched at his neck, blood-red eyes peering out at the students and teacher in displeasure. He sighed out in frustration, fingers halting. "Kurogyri, get over here now and summon the Noumu," he ordered, all heads turning to the mass of purple and black, watching as he warped over to Shigaraki. He opened another portal, a bulky bird monster stepping out, brain exposed as its eyes clicked over to the teacher and students. It let out a mighty roar, clenching its hands into fists. Katsuki tensed up, remembering the creature from his first encounter with one 6 years back. "Not that stupid fucking creature again," he turned to his teacher, wiping the tears from his eyes as they narrowed down. "Oh teach, don't take this fucking thing lightly, it's seriously fucking powerful." "Thanks for the heads up, Bakugo, just stand back." "Not fucking happening, that thing almost fucking crushed my stomach and ribs with one hit. We're not fucking leaving you to deal with this shit alone." Katsuki cut his teacher off, hands crackling as many explosions set off. Shoyuta gave in with a sigh, giving his students permission to help. Shudo was the first to make a move. As the Noumu in a rage ran forwards, he shot a mountain of ice towards the creature, freezing it in place. Mina shot acid over at its brain, only to watch it disappear into a portal and land beside it. Shoyuta wrapped his scarf around the Noumu as Katsuki blasted around it, heading straight for Kurogyri. Ejiro in tow, he reached out to grab the metal plate within the mass when a portal appeared in front of him. Ejiro grabbed his leg, running to the side before throwing him back at the portal. He set off explosions on the metal plate once more as Ejiro kept Shigaraki at bay, hitting him back with hardened hands. As the struggle went on, the doors soon burst open. All Might rushed in, UA teachers following suit. He leaped down the stairs, landing a hard punch against the Noumu. Seeing no damage against the beast, he kept up a rapid sprawl of punches. breaking the ice that encased the beast before he launched him into the air, blasting him out of the ush. Shigaraki managed to fend off Ejiro and remove Katsuki from Kurojairi, who created a portal, disappearing in a matter of seconds. It hurts. Everything hurts so much. I can't move. I can't see. It's dark. I want to move, but it hurts so bad. I can still feel my blood leaking out. I'm so cold. How long have I been here? I don't want to stay any longer. Please, the things they're doing, I hate it. I just want to leave. So be able to move freely and not bound by these chains and stupid shock collar. The sound of a door screeching open echoed around the room, alerting the boy who lay in silence and pain. He's back. No, please don't. I don't want to do this. Don't come any closer. A tall figure loomed over the boy, crusted skin pulling up into a sinister smile as his blood-red eyes glinted in glee. He bent down, stretching an arm out and placing his hand on the boy's head, earning a flinch from him. Please, Shigaraki, please stop this. Are you ready, Izuku? The boy only whimpered in reply, too scared and in pain to open his mouth to respond. No matter if you are, it's that time of day to start with our experiments. Now be a good little pet and stay still. He called the Noumu over, ordering it to pick Izuku up and follow along. Izuku curled in, the flaring of pain searing his bones and muscles as he felt the bulking beast lift him up. It followed its master into a room filled to the brim with tubes and tools. A lone metal table stained red with blood sat in the center, the table that is used to perform these experiments. Izuku was placed down and strapped into place, feeling the coldness across his bare back. Now then, let's get started, shall we? He grabbed a needle and filled it with a clear liquid, jabbing it into Izuku's neck and into his bloodstream. No sound left the boy as he braced for all the pain about to come. As Shigaraki removed the needle, a sharp feeling of pain gripped Izuku's bones. It felt as if 1,000 needles were jabbed into him at once. He bit his lip to stop from screaming, writhing in pain as he trashed around. He felt a hand gripping his arm, alarm overthrowing the pain as he calmed down, ragged breaths leaving his agape mouth. A smirk makes its way across Shigaraki's face as he grabbed a knife. He sliced it down Izuku's arm, watching the blood pool out onto the cold table. He took pleasure in watching others in pain. He dragged the knife's tip across Izuku's other arm, silently laughing. He soon plunged it into the greenette's stomach, watching the boy squirm as he bit back another scream. Shigaraki brought the knife down, carving down as blood pooled out in a rapid flow. He lifted the knife out, wrapping his fingers around Izuku's wrist instead. He watched the flesh peel off, red muscles becoming visible. He took his hand away and grabbed a new needle that held a purple liquid. He injected it through the exposed muscles, watching the liquid drain into the boy's bloodstream. He took it out and clicked his fingers, watching the Noumu come over to the table. It picked Izuku up and walked over to a test tube. Shigaraki opened the tube, letting the Noumu place Izuku inside. He closed it and let the green liquid pool in, filling up the tube quickly. He soon left, the Noumu in tow, heading back round to the bar. He sat on a stool as the Noumu left to a corner. He looked up St. Kurojairi, a smirk plastered on his lips as small, quiet laughs escaped his lips. The purple and black mass turned around to face Shigaraki, placing down a clean glass and pouring some water into it. He handed it to Bluenet before he started cleaning another glass. How's it all going? He asked, watching the smirk across Shigaraki's face grow wider with the question. I'm guess it's going well. Quite well actually. He's more obedient than we was before. He's currently in the testing tube, resting. I'm going to speed up the process when I go back in. Sensei wants this done quickly. Can't give up now. Shigaraki's eyes seemed to shine as he spoke about his sensei, a hint of giddiness in his voice. Everything is working perfectly. We're sure to have this advanced Noumu in no time. Kurojairi nodded in understanding, placing the glass he cleaned down on the counter. He picked up a new one, starting to clean it when he heard a knock on the door. They both turned to the door, not expecting any visitors. The door burst in, narrowly missing Shigaraki as a horde of heroes barged in, All Might at the head of the group. His smile was turned into a frown as he stared down at the two villains. Attack! We must find young Midoriya and bring him home. All Might's booming voice filled the air as he and all the heroes present barged forwards. Kurojairi quickly warped Shigaraki into the testing room as he and the Noumu fought to fend off the heroes. Shigaraki slammed his hand on the release button, the green liquid rapidly clearing before the door opened. As Shigaraki grabbed hold of the greenette, the door behind him burst open. Drop the boy now, villain, All Might spiked calmly, inching closer to the villain and victim. Shigaraki raised a hand to Izuku's throat, wrapping 4 fingers around it as he stared into All Might's eyes. The hero froze. A short cackle escaped Shigaraki's lips as a grin spread across his face. You have no chance of saving him like this. You should just give up now or else he's dead. The brunette inched his middle finger closer to Izuku's neck, watching an expression where shock and anger wash over the hero's face. As he stepped backwards, a bullet shot through his arm. He dropped his guard, watching blood seep from his wound. He caught sight of All Might launching himself forwards. He turned to Izuku and reached out, but was too slow. All Might pulled him away, holding the boy close as he jumped back. Snipe and Ectoplasm entered the room, ready to attack at any moment. Kurogiri, Shigaraki's voice rung out loud, the warp gate appearing next to him. Ectoplasm's clones rushed forwards to intercept them, but they'd already left. The clones dissipated as both heroes turned to All Might, seeing him holding an unconscious Izuku in his arms. He looked up at the two, then back down to the boy. He opened his mouth and whispered out, "Mission success." Class 1A was on edge. It had been 2 weeks since Izuku was kidnapped, and another 2 since he was saved. They didn't know when he'd be released from the hospital and didn't want to even think about what the villains may have put him through. They all sat in silence, waiting for their teacher to come in and present them with the good or bad news. Their heads snapped up at the sound of the classroom door slamming open. Shoyuta walked in, slouched over a bit as he made his way to the front. He turned abruptly to the class, major eye bags present under his eyes. Everyone was waiting for him to speak, to tell them about their friend's condition. "As you all know, Midoriya was in hospital in bad condition," he started, watching everyone tense up at that statement. "We're not completely sure what's happened to him while with the villains, but he is in stable condition." A few sighs of relief were let out. "His physical state isn't too bad, but his mental state has changed. He'll be coming in later. Don't startle him with loud noises or touch him or anything like that. You have to be wary of his wounds, both physical and mental." He turned his tired gaze to Katsuki. "Bakugo, you should see him first. He'll want you around. From what we've seen, he doesn't like being alone for too long. He's currently in the teacher's lounge with Cementos and Snipe. I suggest you go see him now." Katsuki nodded as he stood up, speeding to the door and rushing down the hallway. He skidded to a halt outside the teacher's lounge and slowly opened the door. His crimson eyes instantly landed on a mop of green messy hair. "Izuku," he murmured, watching as the boy turned his head around. Katsuki walked over, going around the lounge so he was standing in front of his friend. A small smile was present on Izuku's face as he held his arms open. Katsuki immediately hugged him, tears falling from his eyes. "You're back. Thank God you're back." He lifted himself up, looking down at the boy who tried to wipe away his tears. "I missed you, Kachan. I was so scared." Izuku's voice trembled as he spoke. He stood up and wrapped his arms around Katsuki. Still feeling the pain searing in his bones, he gripped onto Katsuki's clothes, closing his eyes tightly as he silently cried. "I didn't know what to do. I was so scared there." Katsuki gripped his friend tightly, resting his head upon the greenettes as he hugged him close. They stayed like that for a few moments more before letting go of each other. They turned to the teachers, seeing them nod to the two friends. The duo wiped their eyes before heading out. Izuku clutched onto Katsuki's hand, feeling safer when closer to him. They walked down to Class 1A, a wave of nervousness flooding over Izuku as they stood outside the giant, intimidating door. He took in a deep breath, tightening his hold on Katsuki's hand and glancing up at the blonde. Katsuki slowly opened the door, causing the students inside to turn and gawk. The duo stepped inside, seeing their classmates' faces brightening up as smiles settled on them. A few students, Ejiru, Denki, Achiko and Tenya all stood up, rushing over to their injured friend and exclaiming, "You're back." Izuku nodded slightly, unsure of what to do when they all huddled together. "We're so happy you're here," they said in unison, which creeped Izuku out a little, but he was glad. He brought them all into a group hug, a soft sigh leaving his lips as he hugged them tightly. They let go as Shoita gained everyone's attention. They all sat down in their seats, listening to their teacher as he opened his mouth to speak. "Now that you're all settled, I have some more news. A week from now, the sports festival will be held." A few students cheered while others muttered among themselves. "From this point on, you'll all have to train in order to prepare for the festival. Many heroes will gather there and be watching you all perform. If you want to go big in the world, you need to make your debut there. This in turn will allow these heroes to choose who they wish to take under their wing in internships. You'll all start training with All Might next lesson after lunch. Meet him at the fake city in your hero costumes." With that, the bell blared through the speakers, signaling that it was lunchtime. Everyone jumped up out of their seats and rushed out the door to the cafeteria. Izuku and Katsuki stayed behind the horde as to not get squished by the oncoming riot from other classes, and they were smart enough to bring bentos. They pulled out their lunches and turned to each other, eating in content silence. They occasionally brought in small talk, but still liked the silence. "You ready for the Spurts Fest? 'Cause I'm fucking ready to kick some ass," Katsuki commented. His usual smirk spread across his face as he dug into his food. Izuku nodded in agreement. "I'm excited. I hope I'll be able to get close to winning. It sounds fun." The smile plastered on his lips turned to a frown as his viridian eyes seemed to lose some color. "I just hope I can actually control my quirk. I'm not sure what they did to me. I'm still scared." He faced down, placing his chopsticks down over his bento box. Would you mind helping me again? I don't want to take too much time out of your training schedule, so you don't have to." "Stop right there, Izuku," Katsuki cut off his friend, placing a finger to his lips as he looked back up. "I don't care what the fuck you have to say. I'd fucking help you even if you didn't ask. We can help each other train our quirks, so shut the fuck up, eat your lunch, and we can start training together next lesson. I'll fucking right." Izuku nodded, a small smile spreading across his face as his eyes softened. They continued to eat till the bell rung out loud. They finished up and waited for everyone to enter, watching All Might burst in with bursting energy radiating off his being as he pumped up the class, ready for the class's next step to becoming the next generation of heroes. A week flew by in no time. Everyone was prepared for the sports festival. They were all pumped up and ready to win the festival, to be recruited for internships to become possible sidekicks in the future. Class 1A was buzzing in excitement as they changed into their gym uniforms, chatting excitedly among themselves. A few declared war upon each other, much like how other classes did the same. President Mick's voice came blasting through the loudspeakers as he announced the classes. The crowd cheered loudly as the hero classes walked out, followed by the general studies classes, support classes, and lastly, the business classes. Everyone piled together as Midnight walked onto the stage to announce the first round. A few students turned their heads away seeing that she was in her hero costume. She held out a whip as she gained the attention of everyone in the stadium. "Good morning, students, heroes, and spectators. Welcome all to the sports festival." The crowd cheered, seemingly louder than before, and before we get started, will Bakugo Katsuki step up to represent his class? A few murmurs left the surrounding students as Katsuki walked up to the stands. He leaned into the mic. "I pledge that I'll win." Everyone started booing him, some shouting insults while some just glared in anger. Izuku huffed out a heavy sigh, face palming as he shook his head in disappointment. Katsuki walked back down, ignoring the students as he stood back next to Izuku. The greenette slapped him upside the head, earning a growl from his friend. Midnight announced the first round, being an obstacle course. Everyone bunched up at the front gate, waiting for the timer to go. At the sound of the green light buzzing, everyone started pushing forwards. Shudo froze the ground and everyone else, rushing forwards to get a head start. Students started to break out of the ice and slide forwards, trying to catch up with the class's resident cold boy. Izuku grabbed onto Katsuki as he blasted himself forwards, propelling them both ahead to the first obstacle, the entrance exams robots. The 0-pointers stood tall, casting shadows over the students that managed to get ahead. Izuku froze, looking up at them as he remembered what Deku did when he blacked out. "If you want me to do it, I can. It's UPTO while you dot." Deku, he didn't get a reply. "Something's happening. I hope he's alright in there. It's like a glitch just occurred." Izuku opened his left eye, closing his right as a transparent clock image appeared as a magic circle, pulsing a few times before everything seemed to freeze. Izuku looked around, seeing the world in black and white. He looked to his hands. He was the only thing in color. "This is new," he muttered, deciding to run forwards till the world started running again. He passed all the robots, running under the 0-pointers to the next obstacle, a gorge pit. He blinked, closing his left eye and opening his right. Time started up again as normal, color fading back in as sound hit his ears, his eye aching. Izuku took a leap of faith, his right foot landing on a pole that connected platforms together. He pushed off his leg, bracing himself in case he slipped off the pole. He heard explosions and shouting behind him, signaling that Katsuki was most likely picking a fight with someone, most likely Shudo. Izuku's foot slipped off the pole, so he reached out his hands and grabbed hold, swinging his legs up to support his weight. He climbed along, reaching the first platform and swinging himself up. He looked to his right and left, seeing Shudo sliding across on his ice. He looked up once, hearing Katsuki above him, seeing the blonde shooting through the air after first place. He heard commotion behind him, telling him that other students were there and starting to cross. He used the same tactic, leaping across the pole and bouncing off it, using his arms if he slipped. He made it to the end and started sprinting, nearing the final obstacle. He made it, but skidded to a halt seeing the minefield he had to cross. Shudo and Katsuki were already running over to the finish, fighting each other along the way. Izuku opened his left eye, though it was still aching, and slowed down time. He kept his gaze to the ground, passing over the mines carefully as he reached the two fighting for first. He closed his eye due to the pain and ran for it, not caring about the mines under his feet. He glanced back, seeing Shudo and Katsuki running after him, forgetting their fight for first. They all crossed the minefield and were racing for first. And the winner is... President Mick's voice rung out clear and loud through the loudspeakers. Everyone in the audience watched in silence, seeing a figure sprinting out of the tunnel. Bakugo Katsuki. He blasted his way out, skidding to a halt and sending dust flying. Todoroki Shudo is in second with Midoriya Izuku in third. The crowd cheered violently, throwing their hands up in excitement as they screamed at the top of their lungs. Student after student piled in, some congratulating others for making it into the second round. Nice job, Ka-chan. You got first. I wasn't sure who'd win after you both passed me. It was so close, Izuku exclaimed, hugging his friend tightly. TCH. Like fucking hell I may let that icy hot bastard beat me. I said I'd win this so I'm fucking winning this shit, Katsuki declared, his usual smirk plastered on his face. Midnight called everyone over once the round was announced over, all 42 that got inside in relief as they walked towards the stage. Midnight congratulated those who got in and announced the next round, the cavalry battle. She explained all the rules and the point system. Everyone's head snapped towards Katsuki who had 10 million points. His smirk only grew as he thought about who to add to his team. People started rushing towards their friends, quickly forming their groups. Katsuki grabbed Izuku, Ejiro and Mina, seeing as she basically announced that they were friends on the third day. He got his headband and Izuku started to talk strategy, noting that almost every team would be after them. If we can keep dodging and blocking their attacks, we can win. We just have to keep a hold of our score. If we lose it, attack the team who grabbed it as they'll be closest to us. Just grab as many of their bands as you can to make sure that, even if we don't grab ours, we can still pass. Most teams will be after us, but others will strategize and go after other teams, so we have to be careful, Izuku explained in a hushed tone, wary of the opposing teams all around. Ka-chan will be the rider with Kiri at the front. If we're in a pinch, I'll slow or pause time and find an escape route. Ashido, you and Ka-chan are our offense, so keep an eye out for any team advancing our way. Got it. His three other teammates nodded their heads in understanding. President Mike announced that they only had 1 minute till the battle started. They formed together, Katsuki on top, Kiri in front, Mina Oke the right and Izuku on the left. Katsuki tied the point band around his forehead, a large smirk plastered on his face with an evil glint in his eyes. A few teams shuddered at the thought of getting too close to the Pharaoh Wolf, but braces themselves for the battle about to begin. Let the cavalry battle begin. Midnight's voice rung out loud and clear, sending teams into a flurry of dust and quirks. As Izuku said, most teams rushed towards them. His right eye narrowed down as he told his team to head right. Katsuki cracked his knuckles, hands balled into fists, as a small deep chuckle left his throat. Many explosions crackled from his palms, reaching out to blast away someone's hand when they reached out to close. Izuku and Mina swerved left, acid sprouting from Mina's feet and right hand as they narrowly dodged another team. They kept running and dodging, explosions and acid flying about, forming a dust cover around the team. They rushed out the left side, explosions hitting the opposition as they rushed forwards. President Mick's voice blared through the loudspeakers as he commented on everything the teams did. The teams soon found themselves surrounded, watching as the opposition took that chance and barbed forwards. A small smile settled on Izuku's face as he took in a deep breath, his left eye flying open. Gray overtook the world as it froze, leaving only himself in color and active. The pushed his teammates forwards, barreling ahead with his teammates out of the circle. An ache in his eye caused it to fall close. Color and noise fading back in as everyone came back to motion. Keep pushing forwards. We don't want that to happen again, he exclaimed, earning him some acknowledgement from his teammates. On your left, Ka-chan. Katsuki spun his body round, barreling an explosion towards a classmate who had gotten too close. The team continued to run about, their explosions and acid keeping opposing teams at bay. Izuku turned his head to the left once sensing another presence, finding Shudo's team inching forwards. His eye landed on Tenya. Seeing him at the front, he took in a breath of air, noting what Tenya might do to gain their points. He's seen it before when he was training. He had passed Tenya on his way home, stopping and watching his powerful boost that rendered his engines useless for a period of time. Everyone, at 6 o'clock, Team Todoroki. I have a feeling that Lita will use a super boost to grab our points. Keep an eye out for any reaction of a boost from him. If we're not careful, they may just grab our points," Izuku said, keeping his eye on the team. "Hey Deku, got any suggestions on what to do?" "I'm sure you already know what I'd say, plus you already have a plan in mind. There's nothing in OTHINGTCHTICNDOSEINGASYUHAVAPLAN. What the hell, it's happening again, are you alright?" Izuku heard no reply and focused his attention back on Shudo's team when Mina called out a difference in Tenya's engine ignite. Present Mike called out, 1 minute left. The ache in his left eye had mostly subsided though was still there. He took in a deep breath, exhaling slowly as his eye fluttered open just as Tenya boosted forwards. The world once more turned gray, the aching in his eye throbbing as he pulled his team to the left. He moved far enough away from the opposing team before his eye fell close due to the pain. Tenya flew away, shock written across his face once he realized what Izuku had done. "Sorry Lita, can't let you take this points," Izuku called out, a bright smile on his face as his team ran away. "Time's up," Present Mike shouted, probably causing Shuda's ears to start bleeding from the sheer intensity of the shout. "Let's have a look at our leaderboard." As the teams disbanded, the leaderboard appeared next to Midnight up on the stage. In first place we have Team Bakugo. In second place is Team Todoroki. In third place is Team Shinso. And lucky last, in fourth place is Team Monoma. Izuku cheered and hugged his teammates, excitement rushing through his bones. Mina and Ejiro hugged back as they cheered loudly. Katsuki only sighed, patting Izuku's head as he turned away, glaring at his opponents around him. His gaze settled on Shudo, who was glaring back, sharp cold eyes glaring daggers at him. Katsuki tched and turned his gaze away as Midnight announced the next game. Before she could announce the game, Mashireo and another student from Class 1B announced that they didn't want to continue as they didn't remember the last event. "I respect your decisions. Will 2 people from Team Kendo step up to take their places?" Midnight asked, placing a hand on her hip as she waited patiently. "I'd like to give this opportunity to Team Tetsu instead," Kendo announced, much to the mentioned classmates' delight. He and his teammate Ibara took the 2 free places, thanking Kendo before Midnight finished her announcement of the last game. The final game for this year's sports festival is. The game roll started up, switching between games till it finally halted. One-on-one battles. "Alright, who's ready for some one-on-one battles?" Present Mix's voice boomed through the loudspeakers, earning cheers from the stadium. "Our first matchup of today will be." A picture of Izuku in a purple net from General Studies popped up on the screen. Shinso Hitoshi from General Studies, Class 1C. The crowd cheered as he walked up to the giant cement block produced by Cementos for the battles. And from the Heroics class, Midoriya Izuku from Class 1A. Izuku stepped out of the tunnel and into the blinding sunshine and loud cheers and yells from the crowd. He stood at his end of the cement block, looking over at his opponent as Midnight stood off to the side to start the match. "Are you both ready?" The two nodded. "Let the match begin." "Yo, so you're from the Heroics class, huh? That must be nice." Hitoshi started to talk, scratching the back of his neck as he did. "You know, I wanted to be in Heroics. But my quirk wasn't suited to the test and I was denied entry to that class." "A mental quirk, presuming, something to do with verbal responses. So as long as I keep my mouth shut, I can win," Izuku thought, stepping forwards. "Why aren't you saying anything? Come on, speak. What, did your friend stop you from talking? The guy who decided to quit. What an idiot." Izuku grit his teeth, opting to stay quiet against the taunts. "I guess he isn't your friend if you're not defending him. That's just sad, really." Izuku lunged forwards, hands balled into fists as he barreled it into Hitoshi's stomach, launching him backwards and towards the edge of the stadium. He regained his composure and rushed forwards, skidding right as Izuku swung his leg around, narrowly missing his opponent. He turned and blocked a punch from the purple net, retaliating with his own face. Hitoshi brought his arms up to take the blow, staggering backwards from the power behind the punch. Izuku pushed him back as he struggled to regain himself, causing him to fall over and out of bounds. Shinso is out of bounds. Midoriya advances to the next round, Midnight announced, the crowd cheering loudly for the winner. Izuku walked over to his opponent, holding out a hand to him. "You fought great, Shinso. I'm sure with practice, you'll be the victor next time." He helped Hitoshi up onto his feet, smiling at him. "I didn't do much. If I could use my quirk, then I might have had a better chance," Hitoshi said, scratching the back of his neck. "You're lucky you're in the Heroics course. Everyone else here is just here to make you guys look better. You wouldn't know what it's like to be at the bottom of the barrel." A frown settled on Izuku's face as his open eye stared at the male. "I know what it's like to be at the bottom. To feel helpless with no will of your own. I've been there before. you're not alone in this world, and if you feel the need to talk to someone, I'm here if you need me. Izuku watched as his opponent nodded and left, heading back into the tunnel he came through. I'm sure he'll be fine. He turned around and left the block, heading down the steps and into the tunnel. Don't worry so much. You have YURCLFTOWRRYABUT. Plus, I'm sure he has others to confide in. Just focus on the festival. Kaku would be pissed if YUFAILEDNOW. Izuku headed up to the stands, finding his class and taking a seat beside Denki. He noted that Shuto and Hanta were gone, getting ready for their match. He leaned back in his seat, listening to the commotion around him before the loudspeakers turned back on as President Mick's voice rung out clear and loud. Alrighty folk, are you ready for the next match? Roars of delight erupted from the crowd, deafening Izuku a bit from the sheer noise of the commotion. Give it up for our next two competitors. From the heroics course, seemingly a Spider-Man ripoff, it's Zero Hanta from Class 1A. Hanta headed out onto the stage, looking a bit sheepish from the attention and comment, against his classmate, the resident icy boy from the heroics course, Todoroki Shuto from Class 1A. Shuto walked out with a stoic look plastered on his face. Are you ready? Midnight asked, holding her whip up in the air. The two opponents nodded, getting in stance as they waited for Midnight's word. Already then, start. I might not win, but I'll still try. Hanta shot his tapes from his elbows, wrapping them around Shuto and swung him around, skidding his across the concrete battle arena towards the border. Shuto froze the tape before he hit the border, freezing it up to Hanta's elbows. He broke the frozen tape wrapped around his chest, stomping on the ground and sending shards of ice towards his opponent who tried to avoid the attack, but couldn't. He was frozen solid in a large, spiky block of ice, freezing half of the arena and stadium. He twitched and tried to move his arms or legs, but could only manage to blink and breathe. Midnight, though half frozen by the ice covering the stadium, cleared her throat and spoke. Zero Hanta, can you move? Hanta muttered out a no, ceasing his struggled attempts at moving. Zero Hanta is unable to move. Todoroki wins. The crowd cheered, though slightly afraid of the ice inches from piercing their faces. Shuto walked up to Hanta and placed his left hand against the ice, glancing up and glaring at the number 2 hero. He released his classmate and removed all the ice before turning back and heading back into the tunnel shrouded in shadow. He and Hanta joined the rest of his classmates to watch the next match, hearing the buzzing of the crowd as the next matchup was announced. On to the third round. From the heroics course, we have Kaminari Denki from Class 1A. President Mick's voice boomed from the loudspeakers as Denki walked out and onto the cement stage. And from Class 1B, we have the assassin Shiozaki Ibara. A girl with vines for hair stepped up onto the stage, seemingly disgruntled by the comment President Mike made about her. Please excuse me, but I am no assassin and do not wish to be associated with one, so I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't call me an assassin. I do not wish to bring harm to others, Ibara said, clasping her hands together as a heavenly glow surrounded her. I'm sorry, it won't happen again, President Mike, taken aback, stuttered. Midnight cut him short as she thrust her whip into the air, announcing the start of the match. You're pretty cute. After this, do you want to grab a bite to eat? Denki asked, electric currents surrounding him as he charged up his attack. This'll be over in a second. He shot out the electric currents, sparking the ground and traveling across the cement to Ibara. She turned around, the vines from her hair digging into the ground and creating a barrier between her and the electricity. Once the sparks died down, she sent a bundle of vines underground. They shot out and wrapped around the blonde who has short-circuited, immobilizing him instantly. Kaminari is unable to battle. Shiozaki wins. Her fellow classmates cheered loud as she released the blonde, setting him gently on the ground. She bowed down slightly before heading off back into the stadium to join her classmates. Denki was removed from the field on a stretcher and marched off, allowing Midnight to announce the next matchup. Izuku started to mutter about Ibara's quirk, commenting about strengths and weaknesses, creeping out his fellow classmates slightly. He only stopped when he received a punch to the head by Katsuki. As for our next round, we have Lita Tenya from the heroics course, Class 1A, and from the other heroics class, we have Kaibara-san from Class 1B. Midnight announced the next round. She stole my lines, President Mike commented, pouting slightly before picking up his spirit once more. Are y'all ready for this, folks? Cheers filled the air, never once letting it fall completely silent in the stadium. The two students walked out and onto the cement stage, Sin craning his neck as he scouted out his opponent. He cracked his knuckles as Tenya stretched his legs, narrowing his eyes as he stared over at Sin. Start. Tenya lurched forwards, Quirk activated instantly as he rushed towards his opponent. Sin dodged to the side seamlessly, activating his own quirk and rushing forwards. Tenya turned around and ducked under Sen's attack, his drill-like arm jabbing above his opponent's head. Tenya swept his leg across the ground, tripping Sen and slipping to the side, out of reach as Sen swung his drill legs around in a helicopter motion. He aimed to hit the brunette, who kicked back up to his feet. They faced each other with gritted teeth and furrowed brows, lunging forwards with incredible speed. Tenya kicked his leg up into the air, aiming a blow at Sen's shoulder. It was quickly blocked, allowing Sen an open attack. He slammed his drill arm down on Tenya's leg, receiving a short yelp of pain. He brought his leg back, skidding backwards as he dodged another attack from Sen's drill-like arms. "Is that all you've got? You're gonna make me start thinking that Monoma was right about you guys. It's a wonder how you're in the top class," Sen taunted, limboing under a high kick meant for his face. Grunting and clenching his fists, Tenya kicked his other leg into the air, roundhouse kicking his opponent in the torso. He flung Sen towards the borderline, watching as he skidded to a halt before rushing forwards once more and gut-punching him out of bounds. Never taunt a fellow peer. It may just end in your downfall. Kaibara is out of bounds. Lita advances. Midnight announced, the roars of the crowd becoming louder as they cheered. Sen kicked himself up to his legs, nodding to Tenya before walking off, the brunette heading to opposite direction. On to our next round. From the Heroics Department, we have the extravagant Yaoyorozu Momo from Class 1A. Versing a peer from the other Heroics Department, we have the class's cocky peer, Monoma Nito from Class 1B. Present Mike yelled out, his booming voice filling the loudspeakers and echoing around the stadium. The two students stepped up to the cement arena, ready to fight. Begin. Momo created a long pole and shield, rushing forwards as Nito turned his skin into metal. He sprinted forwards, dodging Momo's pole and hitting her shield, a smirk breaking out over his face. As Momo swung her pole around to hit the blonde, he swept her off her feet. She landed on the ground, rolling to the side to dodge a fist to the face. She stood up, quickly bringing her shield to the front to block another punch. She skidded backwards, unable to attack as the barrage of punches kept coming. She noticed that Nito stopped and jumped back, his metal skin returning to normal as his smirk grew wider. Momo instantly created a long pole to attack when she heard Midnight's voice. Yaoyorozu is out of bounds. Monoma advances to the next round. Gasping in surprise, she quickly glanced down and realized that her left foot had stepped out. Her creations disappeared as collapsed to the ground in defeat. She shakily stood back up, a gloomy aura hanging over her as he headed off, disappointed in failed attempt at winning. On to the next match. Present Mike quickly took over before Midnight could continue. From the Heroics Department, we have the class hothead, Bakugo Katsuki. And from the other Heroics Department, we have Kurwaro Shirhai from Class 1B. A large smirk broke out over Katsuki's face as he exited the tunnel. He walked onto the stage, crimson-red eyes glinting as he glared at his opponent. Midnight started the battle, allowing Katsuki to start setting off his infamous explosions. He glared down at Shirhai, the crackling of explosions flooding his ears. He leaped off the ground, propelling himself forwards with powerful explosions, aiming to hit his opponent. Shirhai sidestepped to the left, narrowly dodging Katsuki's outstretched hand. Katsuki landed with a skidded halt, kicking himself around, sending a large explosion at Shirhai. He brought his arms to his face, bracing himself for the explosion before feeling a rough hand grip his uniform. He tried to merge into his shadow, but was swung around like a rag doll before being thrown outside the border. Kurwaro is out of bounds. Katsuki advances to the next round. Smirking triumphantly, Katsuki turned on his heel and walked off, lightly humming to himself at his win. "You did great, Ka-chan." Izuku cheered as loud as possible, waving his arms in the air as he called out. As the roaring cheers of the crowd died down, Present Mix's voice thundered out clear. On to the next round. From the Heroics Department, we have the Human Rock, Kirishima Ejiro from Class 1A. And from the other Heroics Department, we have the Human Steel, Tetsu from Class 1B. The two students made their ways to the arena, cracking their knuckles as they stared at one another. Begin. The two rushed at each other, their skin hardened as they pulled their fists back, launching them forwards and slamming them into each other's faces. "That all you've got?" Tetsu taunted, wiping his chin as beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. "Like hell it is." Ejiro clenched his fists, standing strong as he glared down at his opponent. They charged once more, the shock of another punch causing them to stumble. They regained their balance and struck each other with an uppercut, sending them back and down to the ground. They landed with an audible thud on the cement. Groaning, they kicked themselves up and punched each other in the gut. This kept up, the duo panting and gasping for breath as they felt their quirk start to fade. They leaned into another punch before they both collapsed, the rise and fall of their chests being the only way to tell from afar that they were breathing. Though they twitched and struggled, urging themselves to move, they were otherwise motionless and aching. Their quirks faded away, showing slight bruising where each punch connected. "We have a tie," Midnight announced, hoisting her whip into the sky, watching as the paramedic team came and carried the two away to rest. "Once they have healed up, we'll do another small match to break this tie. Until then, we have our last two competitors for round 1. We have, from the Heroics Department, a pink gal full of energy, Ashido Mina from Class 1A, and from the other Heroics Department, we have the Airbender, Subiraba Kozai from Class 1B, President Mike shouted out. Mina bounded up to the arena, bouncing around as she made her way up, Kozai coming up in a calmer manner. Start. Acid secreted from Mina's feet as she rushed forwards, throwing acid from her hands towards Kozai. He created a wall of air, catching the acid and watching it melt through the solid air. He snapped his head to the right, creating another wall of air before the acid could hit him. Mina, pouting slightly, turned on her heel and shot out more acid, melting the solid air and trying to land a hit. She skidded back, halting centimeters from the border before barging forwards. She bashed into the air wall before roundhouse kicking Kozai. Acid flying out from her shoes. "You're going down," she exclaimed, kicking him to the ground before slamming her other foot into her opponent's side, sending him rolling across the ground. He created a barrier of air, hitting it at the border edge. Mina, frustrated, ran over and melted the barrier with acid. She went to kick Kozai out, but he grabbed her leg before she could land her hit. He swung his leg around and tripped Mina over, kicking her over the borderline. She landed with a loud thud, arms and legs flayed out like a starfish. Ashido is out of bounds. Subiraba advances to the next round, Midnight announced, hearing a whine from the pink girl laying on the ground. She stood up and brushed off the dust from her pants, still pouting as she walked off. Now, both Kirishima and Tetsu have rested up. To decide who'll advance to the next round, they'll do an arm wrestle. The two teens headed out to the arena where Cementos created a stone pillar. The two kneeled down on either side and placed their elbows on the block, gripping their hands tight. At the sound of Midnight's start, their quirks activated. They pushed against each other, gripping the cement block tightly, cracking it immensely. They grunted and groaned, trying to push the other's hand down. This went on for minutes on end, the roars of the crowd edging them on further, until a hand was slammed down. Tetsu is down. Kirishima advances to the next round, Midnight announced, holding her whip up high in the air as she announced the victor. "Damn it, I was so close. I didn't eat enough iron today," Tetsu muttered under his breath, annoyed and frustrated. He noticed a hand in his vision and glanced up, looking at Ejiro who stood above him. "Well, what do you want?" "You did good. You're manly as hell. You may have lost this, but that doesn't mean you should give up just yet," Ejiro said, a large goofy grin etched across his face. Tching. Tetsu accepted Ejiro's offered hand, hoisting himself up. He nodded at the redhead before turning on his heel and heading off. Ejiro watched him go before turning to leave himself, his smile never fading from his face as he walked. On to round 2 of the one-on-one battles. After a small break, the one-on-one battle started up again. "Who's ready for round 2? President Mick's voice boomed through the loudspeakers, gaining an eruption of cheers from the ginormous crowd. "First up, we have from the Heroics Department, the lovely Shiozaki Ibara from Class 1B, and from the other Heroics Department, we have the fast and furious Lita Tenya from Class 1A. The two competitors stepped up onto the arena, facing each other with determined looks. Start. Ibara dug her vines into the ground as Tenya raced forwards, letting them rip out of the earth in front of Tenya, who skidded to a short halt. He kicked himself to the side and charged forwards once more as Ibara tried to restrain him, but to no avail. Tenya grabbed his shoulders and pushed her past the line, winning the match easily. Lita Tenya advances to the next round, Midnight announced as Tenya pulled Ibara to her feet after she tripped going over the line. He bowed slightly to Ibara before heading off, Ibara heading in the opposite direction. On to the next match, we have from the Heroics Department, Subiraba Kozai from Class 1B, and from the other Heroics Department, we have Kirishima Ejiro from Class 1A, President Mike announced, watching as the two students headed up to the stadium. Begin. Ejiro immediately hardened his skin, punching his fists together before leaping off to fight. Kozai created an air barrier, deciding to be on the defensive side as he watched Ejiro smash through his barrier. He jumped to the left, avoiding a punch aimed for his stomach. He produced a thicker air barrier in front of him before leaping backwards as it shattered into a million pieces. He kept this up till Ejiro started to get agitated. Roaring in frustration, he smashed the next barrier with his body before reaching out for Kozai, who tried to leap backwards again. He clenched down on the fabric of his shirt's collar, yanking the student forwards and slamming his hardened head against his, effectively knocking him out. Ejiro placed the passed-out student on the ground, releasing his quirk in the process. Tsuburaba is unable to battle. Kirishima advances to the next round. The crowd roared with cheers as robots came out with a stretcher. They placed Kozai on the stretcher and walked off, Ejiro heading in the opposite direction with fire and pride in his eyes. On to the third match of round 2. From the heroics department, known for his taunts and brash nature, we have Monoma Nito from Class 1B. And from the other heroics department, we have the prideful and egotistic Bakugo Katsuki from Class 1A. The two stepped up into the arena, both wearing their own signature smirks. "You ready to lose, explosion boy?" Nito sniggered, his smirk widening as he got into a fighting stance. "Like hell I'm going to lose to a bastard like you, fucking copycat." Katsuki set off a few explosions in his clenched fists, punching them together as his aura darkened around him. As midnight started the match, Katsuki blasted forwards, propelling himself in a ring of explosions. Nito turned his skin to steel, taking the large explosion Katsuki set off. Katsuki reached through the smoke and grabbed onto Nito's wrist, swinging him over his head and slammed him into the ground. Picking himself up from the crater, Nito shot out spikes aimed for Katsuki's head. He blew them all up before rushing forwards again. He reached out with a sparking hand, but quickly withdrew as Nito thrust his drill-like hand at Katsuki's. Furrowing his brows, Katsuki launched himself into the air, projecting himself downwards towards Nito's steel figure. He jumped out of the way, shielding his eyes from the dust and debris that erupted from the new crater in the ground. "Is that all you've got?" Nito taunted, running towards Katsuki as the dust started to clear. "I thought 1A was meant to be the best. If you can't even hit your opponent, then what good are ya?" His steel hand turned into a drill, slicing from the air and towards Katsuki, who ducked and grabbed his wrist, explosions heating the steel. "It's not a great fucking idea to taunt those who are stronger than you," Katsuki snarled, gripping Nito's arm tightly as he swung him around, causing dust to fly up all around them. "I already wanted to blast your fucking face into next week, but now I want to fucking kill your ass by sending you into next year." He slammed Nito into the concrete ground outside of the lines, creating yet another crater with Nito's body. Monoma is out of bounds. Bakugo advances to the next round, Midnight announced, the eruption of cheers drowning her voice out. Nito pushed himself to his feet, panting as he held his aching stomach. Katsuki just smirked down at him, a menacing look promising an ass-beating present in his eyes. A shiver went down his spine before he scurried off, sulking at his loss. Katsuki, smirking his ass off, hauled himself off the cracked and crater-filled arena. He headed into the tunnels, passing by waiting room 1 where Izuku sat contemplating his options. He muttered to himself about the possibility of ending the match quickly, but leaving an aching restraint on his eyes for the next match. He shook his head, slapping his cheeks as he tried to clear his head. "If I do that, then I'll be resorted to being quirkless, giving a slight advantage to my next opponent, if I get through, that is. I shouldn't risk it, even if I can fight in hand-to-hand combat. It's just not worth it. If I can slow down time in small intervals, then I can wear out Todoroki before pushing him out of bounds. But that's easier said than done. I'll just have to see how this works out." Izuku sighed, standing up and heading out of the room as the last match of round 2 was called out. Onto the last match of round 2, the eruption of cheers from the crowd overpowered present mixed booming voice. Whistles and claps echoed around the stadium. "We have, from the heroics department, the stoic ice class resident, Todoroki Shudo from class 1A. And from the same class, we have a plain-looking kid with a big heart, Midoriya Izuku." The two students headed onto the arena, determined looks in both of their eyes that burned with fire. "Begin." Shudo shot out large ice shards towards Izuku, aiming to take him out in one hit. Izuku dodged to the side with ease, his left eye staying closed as he dodged another attack. Ice decorated the ground as he swiveled and swerved, keeping his eye on Shudo for any kind of pattern to his attacks. Becoming more and more frustrated with each and every shard that misses, Shudo began to get hasty. His attacks got larger, and so did the ice that formed upon his arm and leg. He slammed his right foot into the ground once more, watching as the ice encased the other half of the field, and hopefully his opponent too. All was silent for a few moments, before a blur of green sprouted from over the ice, crystals falling from his hair as he stood above Shudo. He leaped down with aimed precision, aiming a kick for his head. Taking this opportunity, Shudo released a wave of ice towards the falling kick, aiming to freeze Izuku from the bottom up. But, as the ice wave was about to touch him, he disappeared from Shudo's view. Startled slightly, he felt a sudden weight and jolt of pain in his ribs. He skidded to the side, swinging his body around swiftly, his eyes landing on Izuku, who stood in a fighting stance. Use your fire, Izuku said, the light in his eyes glistening in the sun. Use your fire, Todoroki. You're doing more harm to yourself than you are to me. Look at me. You haven't landed a single scratch on me. He leaped forwards, raising his fist up high, before sidestepping another wave of ice. You're freezing up yourself. I don't care. I will not use his fire. Shudo placed his arm on the ground, releasing the ice as more started to form upon his arm and leg. I made a vow to never use his flames. I will not break it, no matter what you or anyone else says. As the ice froze up his arm and leg, so did the ground as the terrain became a winter horror. Izuku backed up, dodging the ice before he found himself pressed up against the icy terrain. He tensed up slightly, his right eye fixated on Shudo as a slight aching remained in his left one. His breath hitched as he saw the state that Shudo was in. Ice almost completely covered his right side, most likely giving him hypothermia. He opened his mouth to speak, but was cut off as a slow wave of ice shot out from his panting opponent. He sidestepped to the left, worry lacing his eye. He gulped down a lump in his throat. Todoroki, you need to use your fire. You'll end up killing yourself if you keep this up. You're shaking immensely, and your movements have been slowed. I don't care about any vows you made. The fire you possess is yours, Todoroki. No one else's. No one else controls your flames. Only you do. Izuku clenched his fists tightly, rushing forwards with determination evident in his blazing eye. Just use it. It's your quirk. Shuto's eyes widened slightly, Izuku's punch connecting with his stomach and sending him backwards and towards the ice-covered border. He recalled a memory of his mother trying to stop Enji from hurting him further. Please stop pushing him. He's only 5 years old. He can take it. Get out of my way. Mama. The memory of the two of them sitting together on the lounge as he cried into her shirt. Please, I don't want to be the kind of guy he is. I don't want to be someone who bullies you and hurts people, Mama. Just remember, stay true to yourself. You can be the kind of hero you want to be when you grow up. The memory of his father dragging him away from his siblings who played in the backyard. Ignore them, Shuto. They live in a different world than the one I'm training you for. The memory of his mother, right before she poured boiling water onto his face. Like him, and Shudo, that child's left side sometimes looks unbearable to me. All I can see is his father. As Shudo fell back, all he could do was remember those times. Moronic woman. That was your fault. You're the one who made her hurt me. It's your quirk, not his. Yes, that's right. I am here. Only you can decide to become a hero, no one else. Take this to heart, kids, you got it. How much have I forgotten? He pushed himself to his feet, gazing over at Izuku, who stood determinedly with a small smile present on his face. You are not a prisoner of your lineage. It's okay to use your power, to become who you want to be. Blazing fire flickered to life upon Shuto's left side, a smile stretching wide across his face as the fire roared around him. Izuku smiled wider, clenching his fists, as he silently cheered in his mind, hearing Deku cheering with him. Why are you smiling? You just helped your opponent, and gave me an advantage, Shuto commented, his fire shrinking as ice sprouted from his leg. Izuku lightly chuckled, his ever-present smile widening slightly. Because, the essence of being a hero is to help others, so, not matter if you're my enemy, you are still a person to be given chance, and I want to take that chance to help you. They ignored Enji's fiery outburst in favor of attacking. Shudo let his flames and ice combine, an explosion lighting the air as he thrust the fire and ice towards Izuku. Knowing that he couldn't dodge the large-scale attack without leaving the border, he did the only thing he could. He opened his left eye and watched as time froze. Everything turned to black and white, the onslaught of ice and fire slowing to a halt in a burst of bright lights. Izuku hurried around the attack, stopping behind Shudo before his eye fell close with a painful ache to it. Everything flickered to life, color falling back into place as the flames and ice lurched forwards. Panting slightly, Izuku grabbed onto Shudo's arm that flickered with light fire, a tension striking up his arm. Izuku slammed his foot into the ground, pulling Shudo with him as he swung the dual boy away from where he once stood. As the fire and ice cleared, Shudo sat on the outside of the border, staring up at the greenette, who reached a hand down to help him up. Todoroki is out of bounds. Midoriya advances to the semifinals, Midnight announced, watching as the victor hauled Todoroki to his feet. Good fight, and I'm glad you used your fire. You're slowly breaking the chains, and I'm happy for you. I'm sure with practice, you'll do amazing with your flames in the time to come. Izuku smiled, turning to leave as Shudo headed in the opposite direction, a soft small smile present on his face. As he entered the tunnel, A wave of pain and panic hit Izuku like a truck. He fell to his knees, his heart thumping rapidly against his ribcage, trying to rip out as he clutched his face and chest. Deku's words fell short as the eruption of panic flooding within Izuku pushed him away and drowning him out. He started to hyperventilate, the pain within his eye pounding against his head, sending a fresh wave of erupting agony down throughout his blazing veins and bones. He didn't hear the thumping of footsteps slamming against the hard concrete ground as tears welled up in his eyes. He missed the alarmed and worry-filled call of his name, nor see a figure crouching down in front of him through blurry eyes. He didn't feel the warm, calloused hands placed tenderly yet shakily upon his tense shoulders, trying to pull him back from the dread that weighed heavily upon his being. He soon fell unconscious, falling into the arms of his friend as his shaking body fell limp in his grasp. He was lifted up into Katsuki's arms as he carried him bridal style, rushing down towards the nurse's office. He busted through the door, his panicked aura flooding the room. Recovery girl turned to the panicked student, seeing Izuku passed out in his arms. Place him down onto one of the beds. Katsuki nodded, placing his friend down. What happened to him? He seemed fine in the match. Gulping down the lump in his throat, Katsuki replied, he had another panic attack. I didn't see it happen, but found him before he passed out. Katsuki didn't care how he sounded at the moment, only worrying for his friend. Alright, I'll contact Yamada about this. You should leave and prepare for your match while they fix up the arena, Recovery girl commented, watching Katsuki nod slightly before he left. Alrighty folks, now that the arena has been fixed up, we can get onto the semi-finals. President Mike waited for the outburst of the crowd to die down before speaking up again. Now for our first match of the semi-finals. From the heroics department, we have a boulder, Kirishima Ejiro from Class 1A. And from the same class, we have the resident hothead, Bakugo Katsuki. Although he was still distraught from before, Katsuki wore his signature smirk as he faced his opponent. Ejiro hardened his skin immediately after midnight announced the start of the round. Katsuki blasted himself forwards, slamming his outstretched sparkling palm right into Ejiro's hardened face. A large explosion was set off at point-blank range. Katsuki leaped backwards, watching the smoke clear as he stood in a fighting stance. Ejiro rushed out from the smoke, fist raised as he barreled towards the ash blonde. Katsuki just exploded his hand away before slamming his foot into Ejiro's side. He launched him towards the border, propelling after him as he skidded to a halt before the line, turning to meet a sparking palm to the face, sending him stumbling over the line. Kirishima is out of bounds. Bakugo advances to the finals. The announcement made Katsuki's smirk stretch wider. Damn, I was hoping to last a little longer than that, Ejiro murmured, pulling himself up. Well, you better win this for me, man. Although, I wouldn't mind Midoriya winning too. TCH. I'm definitely winning this fucking tournament. I'm not gonna go easy on anyone, not even Deku. Once he wakes up, the those stayed silent as he headed off, walking towards the nurse's office to check up on Izuku. As he walked, a sudden announcement from President Mike interrupted his thoughts. It seems something's happened to one of our final competitors, so he won't be able to participate. So, in his place, we'll have Todoroki Shudo fighting in the next match. With that being said, our next two competitors from the heroics department are the Speedy Sonic, Lita Tenya from Class 1A, and in Midoriya Izuku's place, we have his opponent, Todoroki Shudo from the same class. Katsuki glanced up at the loudspeaker that sat connected to the roof. He shook his head, trying to clear his mind as he walked down the hallway. Opening the door to the nurse's office, his gaze immediately fell to the unconscious greenette that rested on a bed. He grabbed a chair and pulled it over to the bed, glancing over to Recovery Girl who stood a few meters away. How's he? He may not be awake for a few more hours at most, Recovery Girl answered before Katsuki could finish his question. His mind seems to be all jumbled and in a mess. He'll be fine, but he'll be out of it for a while. His attention was drawn to the TV set up in the corner of the room, showcasing the fight that was currently playing out. Shudo froze up Tenya's engines before he managed to toss him out of bounds, winning the match and heading up to the finals. The ash blonde heaved out a heavy sigh, turning back to his friend. A determination filled his eyes, a fire lighting up. He stood up, heading to the door and glancing back once more before heading out of the room, closing the door softly behind him. Roars and cheers filled the stadium as President Mike announced the last match of the tournament. Katsuki and Shudo stood glared each other down, both wanting to prove themselves and how powerful they are. At midnight start, both boys launched into their attacks. Ice erupted from Shudo's foot as he stomped on the ground, the flurry of large shards racing towards Katsuki as he propelled himself forwards with his explosions. He placed his hands in front of him and powered up a powerful explosion, shattering the ice as it came in contact with his quirk. Shaking spikes of ice from his sandy ash blonde hair, Katsuki lunged towards his opponent, dodging the waves of ice shot in his direction. Getting frustrated with the ice, Katsuki opted to conserve his heat to create a large explosion. Dodging wave after wave of ice and trying to punch the shit out of Shudo, Katsuki has accumulated a lot of sweat from his sudden jerky movements. Irritation mixed with angsty and agitation, powered with his fiery personality, Katsuki let his quirk rip through his arms. Sparks set off around his palms before a loud and large explosion tore through the cold air, a heat wave pulsing across the stadium. Smoke filled the air, clouding everyone's view of the stage and the opponents. Katsuki leaped backwards as he felt a cold wind brush against his skin, narrowly dodging a pillar of ice. Through the smoke, his shake gaze caught sight of a flickering light within, trying to clear out the smog that cloaked Shudo. The smoke started to clear away, allowing Katsuki to get a look at the dual-haired boy who stood strong as ever. Ice and fire rippled at his sides, his eyes narrowed and brows furrowed. A smirk snaked its way across Katsuki's scowling face, a determined glint in his eyes. He raced forwards, explosions sending him faster towards his opponent who reached out his hands, fire blazing and ice shards increasing in size as he fired both sides at once, creating a large-scale explosion from the different temperatures the quirks gave off. Katsuki dug his feet into the ground, crouching with his arms blocking his face, the waves of heat and cold hitting him in cycles as the attack engulfed him. He felt his skin peel, burns and frost layering his arms and legs as the sports uniform was melted and cut from both sides. As quickly as the attack came, it disappeared into nothingness. Staggering to stand straight, Katsuki huffed out a heavy breath of air, panting slightly as he felt the sweat roll of his arms and face. Grinned, rubbing his chin, he glared daggers down at Shudo who seemed out of breath from using such a large-scale attack from both sides of his quirk. Using the advantage the attack gave him, Katsuki lunged forwards on singed and frosted legs, ignoring the glaring pain that seared through his muscles and veins, and rushed his opponent. He raised his right arm and went in with his signature right hook, powered by large explosions, as he nailed his opponent in the chest, sending him backwards and out of bounds. The crowd erupted in loud cheers and whistles as Midnight announced him the winner of the sports festival. "Fuck yes, I am number one, and no one is going to bring me down," Katsuki cheered, pride-ridden all of him as he held his fist high to the sky. Shudo staggered to his feet and nodded in approval to Katsuki, clutching his left side as he walked off, limping slightly. Katsuki, now smirking wider than ever, followed suit, heading back into the tunnel he came from. The arena was removed and all contestants who made it into the final round were lined up in the center of the field, watching the three pedestals in front of them. Katsuki stood tall and proud on the highest point, Shudo on his right and Ejiro on his left on the lowest pedestal. And now, let's welcome a special guest. A bulking figure landed beside Midnight. Dust erupted from where he landed. All Might. "Have no fear, for I am here," he cheered, raising a fist high as his signature smile was put on display. Congratulations to those who made it to the final round, and to those who had fun in this tournament. I will now present our winners with their medals. All Might was given a box with the 3 medals inside by Midnight. He walked up to Ejiro first, taking out the bronze medal and handing it from his neck. "Congrats, my boy, you fought well." He gave him a hug, patting his back before heading to Shudo. "You did great out there, young Todoroki." He hung the silver medal around Shuto's neck and gave him a hug as well. Now, facing Katsuki, he draped the golden medal around his neck, watching as his smirk widened. "Congratulations on winning, young Bakugo. Wear this medal with pride." Giving him a hug, All Might went back down from the pedestals and faced the crowd who cheered and screamed their lungs out. Please give these 3 winners a loud cheer. The noise evidently became louder, almost reaching present mixed level of noise. And remember, always go beyond. Plus Ultra. With the festival now finally over, the students filed out of the stadium with the crowd, giddy and excited. Katsuki managed to get Izuku to wake up and take him home, albeit difficultly as Izuku was leaning on Katsuki for support the whole time. They managed to make it home and have a celebratory dinner with both families, with Katsuki bragging about his win all the while. As the 2 families ate in peace, far away in a rundown bar sat Shigaraki pondering over the sports festival. A grin crossed his face, a half-hearty cackle leaving his throat as he replayed all the fights from the semi-finals and finals. Interesting, very interesting. I'm sure our next visit will be quite entertaining. After getting a day's rest from the sports festival, Yui was back in action once more. Students were buzzing about, chatting about the festival and the reactions from those who watched them. Class 1A was no different, an excited buzz and pep in everyone's step as they chatted giddily. Izuku and Katsuki weren't any exception to this. mainly Izuku blabbering and droning on about everything that had happened and what he had missed, though all noise in the room slowly dissipated as the door was slammed out and closed, courtesy of Shoyuta. Everyone sat down and closed their mouths, though some were still twitching and shaking with excitement and giddiness. Shoyuta cleared his throat as the excited buzz died down. As you know, the sports festival was a way to prove yourselves to everyone, as well as a chance to get scouted for internships. We've gotten a staggering amount of offers for everyone in this class. He clicked a button on a remote, a graph appearing on the board. The offers were more spread out, with most heroes opting to choose those who won. But even if your name doesn't appear on here, you still have offers to take up. You can spend this time sorting through your offers and deciding who you wish to intern with for the week. If you have any question, I'll be behind this podium. He handed everyone their stacks of offers before zipping himself inside his sleeping bag and flopping to the floor to rest. Wow, so many people want you and Todoroki as their interns, though there's no surprise there, seeing as you won and Todoroki for second, Izuku commented, slouching down a bit as he stretched over the table. You'll have to sift through so many. Hopefully you can find someone that suits you. Katsuki hummed in acknowledgement, nodding slightly as he scanned through his large stack of papers. Worry more about yourself, nerd. You also have a shit ton to go through. You did manage to defeat Icy Hot and work your way to the semifinals. He lightly smacked a paper on Izuku's head, earning a pout and a groan from the greenette as he slumped down. So don't go saying anything just yet. Izuku pushed himself back up and began going through his offers, placing them into 3 different piles. Those he likes, dislikes and doesn't know, which isn't a lot. After sorting them into piles, he began going through the still quite large stack of heroes that he likes. Sorting through them took longer than he had wished, but he managed to sift through and get down to a total of 20 forms to go through from the stack of over 100 he had before. He looked up at Katsuki, who had done the same thing as him, sorting through about 1,000 offers from all different agencies and getting down to around 35. Digging, Izuku began looking over the forms and analyzing them, seeing which hero did and what they focused more on in battle. Death Arms, Kamui Woods, Mantle, Native, even Present Mic and Midnight, oh and Ectoplasm as well. The first 2 focus more on battle. Mantle is rescue as far as I know. Not sure about Native. The teachers are a mix of rescue and battle. Most of the other forms I have are battle orientated and focus more on quirk use than anything. I might end up taking Present Mic's offer. His agency is out of the city and he could help boost my confidence more. Seems like an open and shut case to me. Izuku nodded his head slightly, deciding to take up Present Mic's internship offer. He collected the other offers and placed them together, creating a neat stack upon his desk. I wonder who Ka-chan has chosen. You're really thinking into this, huh, though? I guess it is good to think things through before you enact on them. Would be helpful to know this in the future, and how to properly analyze people. He nodded slightly in agreement with Deku, but frowned slightly as the glitch interferes. He also didn't get the chance to ask as the bell suddenly rung, signaling the end of the lesson. Shoyuta stood up and removed himself from his cocoon-like sleeping bag and left the room, Cementas taking his place. You have 15 minutes to continue looking through those offers. After that, we'll get on with the lesson. Sighs of relief floated around the class as everyone handed in their chosen offer to Shoyuta, who entered at the end of the day. Now that everyone has chosen a hero to intern under, I will explain what'll be happening. Next week, you'll all come here, grab your hero costumes and we'll all go down to the train station. When you're with your mentor, follow everything that say. Do not go running off looking for danger or break the law in any way. Do I make myself clear? A chorus of yes sir filled the air. Alright, you are dismissed. Take this time to rest up and prepare for your internships. Shoyuta turned and walked out of the room as everyone stood and started to pack up. The excited buzz from morning was back, chatter filling the air. Hey Ka-chan, you're you interning under? I'm going under Present Mic, Izuku asked, placing his books into his bag. Best Genist, it'd be good to learn from a different kind of hero than what I want to be. As you'd and a lot of other fuckers would say, it'd be an opportunity to see the world in a different light. Katsuki slung his bag over his shoulder, heading off with Izuku at his side, and this'll be the only time when I admit this. I completely agree with that statement, even if it comes from some shithead extra. Izuku nodded in agreement as they followed their classmates out the door. The walk to the station was quiet, with the occasional word vomit from Izuku as they made their way home, waving goodbye as they went their separate ways. Jittery and giddy, Class 1A was packed and ready to go. Everyone said their goodbyes and boarded their trains, heading out to neighboring cities where their internship would take place. Izuku leaned back in his seat, calming his nerves as he sighed, music blaring in his ears. He closed his eyes and relaxed, excitement bubbling within his veins. The ride over to Present Mix Agency wasn't long, taking between 1 to 2 hours. Izuku grabbed his suitcase that held his costume and headed off, pulling out his phone for directions. It took a few minutes, but before he knew it, he was standing outside Present Mix Agency, which doubled as a radio station. Upon entering, Izuku found himself face to face with the overly excited hero who popped up from seemingly nowhere. "You made it. Welcome to my agency, listener. So glad you chose mine," he exclaimed, his booming voice filling the once still air. "Come along now. I have to show you around." Present Mike grabbed Izuku's arm and started dragging him around the agency radio station, meeting the crew and seeing how the station runs. Before he knew it, he knew the entirety of the agency in just a few short minutes. Now that you know the agency, let's set to work. We'll start off with combat training and patrol around later at night. How's that sound, listener? Izuku nodded vigorously, hands clenched into fists. Sounds great. Excellent. And tomorrow, you can join me on my radio show to help boost your confidence and to get your name out there. Present Mike cheered, before stopping suddenly. Shoaizawa did get you all to choose names, right? Yeah, he did. It was sudden, but we all chose our names though. I did have a bit of trouble coming up with mine. Izuku scratches the back of his neck with a sheepish grin on his face. What is it? Fiddling with his fingers, Izuku looked away. I chose the name Eternal Stiffen, since it fits my quirk exactly. Levi is a hot bae, creeper_cat. That's a great name. I'm sure once you announce yourself to the world, you'll be getting a fan base in no time. Eternal Stiffen, the freezing time hero, sounds great. Present Mike blabbered on about his name as Izuku grew more and more embarrassed. You'll be an excellent hero, I know it. Thanks Present Mike sir, Izuku muttered, trying to hide his red face. No need to be so formal. Just call me Yamada-sensei or something when we're in the agency. He placed a hand on Izuku's head, ruffling his hair. Now then, let's get training started. Keep an eye out, criminal activity is higher at night, so don't let anything suspicious pass by. We have to make sure that the people feel safe when we're around, Present Mike said, his voice that of a normal person's. Izuku nodded in understanding and acknowledgement. He stuck by Present Mike's side, glancing around in every direction, determination written into his eyes. They wandered around the city, stopping small-time villains and thugs every now and again. They circled the whole city before heading back to the agency to rest. Izuku took a quick shower, changing into a simple shirt and shorts and heading to the room Present Mike assigned him. He made his way inside and sat down on a bed, eyeing his suitcase that held his costume that sat in the corner of the room, grabbing his phone that lay on the bedside table. He started to text Katsuki. Deku, hey Ka-chan, how've you been? Is the agency you chose what you wanted? Ka-chan, hell no. This place is a piece of shit. How the hell am I meant to survive here for a fucking week? Deku, is it that bad? That sucks. What have you done so far? Ka-chan, abso-fucking-lutely nothing. Why the fuck did I think this be a great fucking idea? Deku, it can't be that bad, can it? Ka-chan, yes it fucking can be. I so wanna explode someone's ass. Yep, that's Ka-chan for ya. Guess it's really bad for him. Izuku's sweat dropped, internally praying for whoever he explodes next. Yep, let's hope he doesn't kill anyone within this week. That'd end poorly to both him and the poor guy on the receiving end. Yeah, it would. Well, we should get some sleep. We have a lot of work to do tomorrow. I am not looking forward to this radio session. You'll be fine, trust me. I hope you're right. Let's get some shut-eye, K. He closed his eyes and lay down, sinking into the soft mattress as sleep took over. Rise and shine, listener. It's a brand new day. You know what that means. Izuku groaned as he sat up, glancing at the time that read 6 a.m. It's time to work. It's 6 in the morning. What could we possibly be doing? Izuku asked, yawning as he rubbed his eyes. We aren't training, are we? We are, so get your hero costume on. We aren't going to stop till you drop, Present Mike announced, pulling Izuku up by his arms and tossed him to his suitcase. Let's do this. It's way too early for this, Izuku thought, grabbing his suitcase and heading to the bathroom. Definitely, it's fucking 6 in the goddamn morning. Why the hell is Yamada-sensei so loud? Guess it's just a part of who he is. I wonder how this radio show is going to go. I'm nervous. A shiver went down his spine as he thought about being on the show. At least it doesn't show my face. That's the only good part about this. Let's just get this over and done with. And as you said before, it'll help boost your confidence. Just try not to stutter too much. If you can stop your stuttering, you'll be fine. I'll try. Izuku pulled on his hero costume and made his way to the training room where Present Mike stood, a large smile spread across his face. Let's just hope I don't die in the first place. So noisy. The idiots have come out, huh? I'll dispose of them later. Right now, I will do what I should be doing. A thin katana's blade glistened in the moon's bright light, shining down into an alleyway. My body won't move, you bastard, die. The pro-hero native staggered, urging his frozen body to move as he was pinned against the wall. If you call yourself a hero, you should choose your last words carefully. Stain gripped his blade tightly, ready to cut the hero down when a sudden movement caught his attention. His head turned quickly to the side, seeing a boy in a suit barreling towards him. He swiped his blade up, catching onto the boy's armor and flung him backwards to the ground, taking off his helmet in the process. A child wearing a suit. Who is he? Stain's rusty and hoarse voice sent shivers down Tenya's spine, but he just glared up at the hero killer. Go away. This is not a place for children. Tenya pushed himself up, glaring daggers at Stain. A scarf as red as blood, carrying blades all over your body. You must be the hero killer, Stain. You are, aren't you? I have been chasing you. I did not think I would find you so soon. His eyes narrowed down with his brows, casting shadows upon his face. I am. He was cut off by Stain pulling his blade up to Tenya's face, causing him to flinch. Your eyes. Are you here for vengeance? Be careful of what you say. Depending on the situation, even children may become my targets. Clenching his fists, Tenya stared the villain down. Are you saying that I am not even a target? Then listen, criminal. An image of his brother flashed in his mind before disappearing. I am the younger brother of a hero you attacked. He started to push himself to his feet. The younger brother of a most excellent older brother. More images flashed in his mind as he stood up. I have come to stop you in his place. Will you take this name from me? Remember my name for as long as you live, Ingenium. It is the name of the hero who will defeat you. I see. All became silent as the two stared at each other. Die. Like I would. Tenya charged at the villain, swinging his leg round to hit Stain, but he merely jumped over the intended attack. Ingenium, your brothers, huh? In order to let news of me spread, I let him live. Stain scoured a kick with his pointed boots, drawing blood as he slammed Tenya into the ground. You're weak. He took his blade and rammed it into Tenya's shoulder, eliciting a yelp of pain. You and your brother are both weak, because you're fakes. Shut up, villain. He's paralyzed from the waist down due to spinal cord damage. He can't work as a hero anymore. Tenya thought back to when his brother was out saving civilians. Tensei is an excellent hero who saved many people, and lead them until now. There's no reason for you to crush him. He's my hero. He was an excellent hero who gave me a dream. I won't forgive you. I'll kill you. Save that guy first. Stain pointed to Native who was breathing heavily to the side, collapsed against the wall. Reflect on yourself and save others. Don't use your power for yourself. Being taken in by the hatred before you and trying to fulfill your own desires. That is the furthest from what a hero should be. Stain brought his blade from Tenya's shoulder and to his mouth, licking the blood that stained it. That's why you'll die. Tenya became frozen, unable to move a single part of his body besides blinking and breathing. And my body won't move. Goodbye. You're an offering to a more just world. Stain brought up his blade, ready to plunge it back into Tenya. Shut up, he muttered, not ready to die. If you admire me, Tenya, then I might become an amazing hero. No matter what you say, you are the criminal who hurt my brother. A sudden fist to the face flung Stain away from the downed hero in training. Regaining his balance, Stain glared at where he once stood, seeing none other than Midoriya Izuku. The greenette quickly glanced at his classmate and the hero, seeing both of them paralyzed on the ground. Analyzing the situation, he grit his teeth in frustration. Stain raised his blade, cold and calculating eyes watching his every move, taking a deep breath. Izuku steeled himself. Lita, can you move at all? He kept his eyes trained on the villain standing in front of him. And no, I can't, Tenya replied, spitting out blood in the process. Cursing under his breath, Izuku yanked the glasses off his face, his left eye activating. Time froze as everything turned to gray. Izuku quickly picked up Tenya's motionless body and deposited him outside the alley. He returned and ran to Native, picking him up and leaving when he had to blink. A splitting headache racked his brain as he ran. He pricked his ears, listening for any sound of Stain moving as he exited the alley, glancing down briefly to see Stain crouching. Tending up, Izuku placed the hero down beside Tenya before facing the hero killer. Stain leaped forwards, blade meeting metal as Izuku took out his staff. You're a true hero, saving them before trying to fight. Those are qualities of real heroes, heroes like All Might. Because of that, I'll let you live. But if you continue to try to protect these fakes, I won't hesitate to cut you down like I've done to every other hero that's crossed my path, Stain said, backing off slightly. Izuku, ignoring the headache pounding in his mind, opened his left eye and slowed down time immensely. He quickly sent his location and an SOS message into the class group chat, and also to President Mike. He closed his eye and turned all his attention back to Stain, who was advancing. Gripping his extended staff tightly, Izuku waited for Stain to make the first move. And so he did. He launched himself forwards, another blade clasped in his left hand as he struck, aiming both blades at the greenette. They hit the metal of the staff as Izuku tried to push him back. Gritting his teeth in frustration, he jumped back and swung his leg around, scouring a hit on Stain's chest. He, however, just launched into another attack. Izuku could tell that he didn't want to kill him, as his targets were Tenya and Native. He just wanted to push him back, to stop him from protecting the two fakes he claims they are. Izuku kept his ears pricked, listening to the sounds around and for any indication of backup arriving. His right eye stayed trained on the villain as he went in for another attack. Blades risen, Izuku dodged to the side, whacking his staff around to land a hit against Stain. But he just missed, Stain leaning backwards before regaining his bearings and attacked Izuku once more. Izuku sidestepped the attack, blocking the next one swiftly with his staff. Come on, where are they? I need backup, now, Izuku thought, clenching his hands that were clamped over the metal of the staff. President Mike, anyone, I can only do so much in this situation. Please, I need help. He parried away a blade before feeling the second blade dug into his gut, piercing through his stomach. Yelping in pain, he jumped back, watching the blade pull out from his stomach. Stain lifted the blade to his mouth, licking the blood. He felt a sudden pressure pushing him down to the ground, freezing him where he lay. Shit, it's his quirk. Ingesting blood paralyses people, damn it. You have a good heart, kid, but I won't let you stop me from ridding this unjust world of these fakes, Stain growled out, stepping over the downed greenette who was urging his limbs to move. As he headed to the alley exit, a burst of fire washed over him. He jumped back, hissing at the sting of flames that danced across his skin. Another interruption. I'm getting tired of this. Next time, Midoriya, please be more specific with what's happening. Appearing from about the corner with a blazing arm stood Shudo, narrowed eyes staring at Stain who had crouched down. I've called for backup. Endeavor should be here soon with the other heroes. Izuku heaved out a heavy sigh of relief, the tension in his muscles relaxing ever so slightly. Thank God someone arrived, he murmured before his expression hardened as he caught movement from Stain. Todoroki, don't let him ingest your blood, that's how he paralyses people. Lita and Native are currently frozen and are outside the alley. Stain is targeting them. He relayed the information, earning a hum in acknowledgement. He started to feel a twitch in his fingers as Shuto brought up an ice barrier to protect them. He left his left arm alight in flames as he made his way over to Izuku. He lifted him up and carried him away, eyes staying trained on the ice that had started to crack. He placed Izuku down to lean against the wall, standing up straight as giant ice shards shot past him. Stain leaped out, blades held at the ready. Shuto shot out his fire, causing Stain to dodge to the side. He grabbed a few knives from the compartments of sheaths littered across his body, throwing them at Shuto. Unable to react in time, the knives were embedded into the dual boy's left arm, causing the flames to sputter. He snapped his head up to the villain as a blade scraped across his cheek, blood springing out slightly. Stain lunged forwards, his tongue stretching out to lick the blood before fire sprung to life again. He fell back, holding his katanas by his face as his cold, harsh glare stayed trained on the dual-haired boy. Izuku felt his arms and legs twitch. The paralysis that weighed heavy upon him lifted. He staggered to his feet, leaning against the wall as his headache started to subside. He gripped his staff tightly, a fire blazing within his eyes. He leaped off the wall, extending his staff further and hitting Stain in the gut, sending him into the wall and forming a small crater, a shower of dust raining down on him. He picked himself up from the crater and barreled towards Shudo, aiming a blade for his face. Shudo became unbalanced and fell backwards, open to the inevitable attack that was aimed to kill. As he closed his eyes, he heard a clunk of metal. Opening his eyes slightly, he found Tenya kicking the blade backwards, as well as Stain. He landed on the ground in front of Shudo, turning around to him and nodding in his direction. I'm sorry you had to join this. It was meant to be my fight, but I'm too weak to go against him, Tenya said, bowing slightly to his fellow classmates, before a look of determination crossed his face. Let's stop this criminal together. I know I shouldn't have run off looking for him. I've learned that now. He turned to face Stain, who had regained his balance and was crouched, ready to strike. So let's work together. That's more like our class prez. "About time you came to your senses," Izuku commented, whipping his staff to its full length. "You ready, guys?" The two nodded, fire and ice coating Shudo's arms as Tenya readied his engines. "Go!" Tenya launched himself forwards, followed by a stream of fire and ice, all aimed at Stain. Izuku paused time as he saw Stain jump up, rushing over to him and tossing him back down into the attack before jumping back himself, time starting up once more. The fire and ice hit, searing Stain's skin before he was frozen in place. Tenya swung his leg around, nailing him in the gut and breaking the surrounding ice in the process. Stain was flung back into the wall, on the verge of collapse. Shudo froze him once more, watching as Izuku sprang forwards and delivered the final blow, knocking the villain out. They were all breathing heavily, the adrenaline in their bones fading, causing the numbed wounds to ache in pain. They each heaved out sighs of relief. Also Erwin is Bay, Creeper_Cat. Breaking the ice off Stain, they tied him up with a handy cable wire that they found, taking him to the entrance of the alley where natives sat, no longer paralyzed. They placed the villain down, looking up and noticing burning flames inching closer towards them every second. The three heroes in training let the tension in their shoulders dissipate, being replaced with exhaustion. The heroes finally made their way over, noticing the three kids, Native and Stain. Present Mike ran out from the crowd of heroes and hugged his in turn, dramatically crying over him. As the police and paramedics arrived, Izuku heard a low growl in the distance. He turned to the sky, noticing a dark shape illuminated by the moon flying overhead. He suddenly realized that it was getting closer and closer by the second. "Get down," he yelled, pushing his friends to the ground as the giant beast, a flying Noumu, swept down. He felt its talons grip into his ribs, dragging him up and away from everyone. "Get off me," he yelled, thrashing in the tight grip, but that only resulted in the talons digging deeper into his flesh. "Deku, please, help me." He felt his consciousness slip and fade, allowing Deku to take over. He took the staff he held and jabbed it into the Noumu's side, then head, then brain, eliciting a loud screech of pain. He felt its talons ease up on his ribs, allowing Deku to kick the beast in the chest before dropping from its grasp. He started to fall, the pressure of the wind digging into his scarred back. He grit his teeth, twisting around so he was facing the ground. He took his staff and extended it to its full length, reaching it out and towards the ground. He glanced up, watching the hero killer stab the flying Noumu in the brain, effectively killing it. Deku turned his attention back to the ground, thrusting the metal staff into the concrete and swinging around it, landing on the ground with a soft thud. He retracted the staff and ran over to where his mentor, classmates, and heroes stood, gazing up to see the Noumu fall to the ground with Stain. Deku stood before his mentor, ignoring the stares and whispers as he focused his attention on Stain. The villain stood up, glaring down at the heroes and students as he let his bloodlust leak freely, freezing everyone where they stood. He let his next statement sink in. This society overgrown with fake heroes and criminals who wave around their power idly should all be purged. This is all, to create a more just society. He turned towards Enji, his bloodlust freezing everyone where they stood. "Endeavor, you fake. I must make things right. Someone must have died in blood. I must take back what it means to be a hero. Come, try and get me, you fakes. The only one I'll let kill me is the true hero, All Might." He pointed his bloody blade towards Izuku, whose breath hitched, and this kid. A wave of pressure washed over everyone as Stain collapsed into unconsciousness, leaving the heroes and students staring at his collapsed form. Taking his control back, Izuku stared at the fallen form of the hero killer they made next to the dead Noumu, just meters from them. He glanced back at his classmates and mentor, unsure of what to do. The first to actually move was Endeavor, who walked over to the fallen figure and lifted him up. The hero dragged Stain over to the officers who stood frozen in place with the rest of the group. They suddenly jolted into action, grabbing the killer and placing him in the back of their car, cuffing him and tying him up. They soon left the scene, the paramedics tending to the wounds everyone received as the students were questioned by their mentors. "I know I said you could go find Lita and to act in self-defense, but I think you'd fight the hero killer. Your message nearly gave me a heart attack, kid," Present Mike said, lightly hitting his intern on the head before smothering him in a tight hug. "I'm just glad that you're alright. I don't know what I would have done if something had happened to you." As he was desperately trying to pull away, Tenya was being scolded by his mentor as Shudo ignored his own, looking anywhere but at him. They were soon taken away by the medics to the nearest hospital and checked in, being taken swiftly to a room. After being checked over and having their wounds treated, they were forced to sleep until morning. As he closed his eyes, Izuku traveled into his head where he saw Deku sitting on a lounge. He rushed over and tackled him into a hug. "Thanks so much. I don't know what I would have done without you. You're a lifesaver, Deku," Thanks so much, he repeated over and over, tightening his hold on his counterpart. He heard a slight chuckle from Deku, who started to pat his head. It was nothing. I got to have some action, so all's fine. I'm just glad that you're fine. If you die, we both die. I can't let that happen now, can I? True, Izuku giggled slightly. Letting go and sinking into the cushions next to him, he leaned his head on Deku's shoulder, sighing softly as he sunk into the lounge. It's all over. For internships. That's definitely not on my list of things I wanted to happen. That was exhausting as hell. You can rest easy now, just go to sleep. I can monitor your body if you want though. I doubt there'd be any need to. Izuku laughed lightly, letting his head fall to Deku's lap as he closed his eyes, letting sleep take over. Rise and shine, boys. The ever-so-loud voice of President Mike resounded within the clinic's walls, waking the 3 students who all groaned simultaneously. They all mumbled, "It's too early for this," as they tried to feel the welcoming grace of sleep. Come on, little listeners, you have a very special guest here. The 3 slowly sat up, rubbing at their eyes and yawning as they stretched their limbs. Who is it? Izuku mumbled, groggy with sleep as he blinked owlishly at his mentor. The chief of the police department, a new voice replied. Manuel walked into the room with a large man who had a dog head. He's here to talk to you 3. Good morning, Woof, the man, dog greeted, bowing slightly as the 3 all stood up, bowing as well. No need to stand, please be seated. I am Surigami Kenji. I'm here to talk about the incident with Stain from yesterday. You all actively used your quirks in public and landed heavy blows on Stain. He's currently receiving treatment for a multitude of bruises, burn marks and slight freezing damage. A quiet, he deserved it, came from Shuto. President Mike has covered for you, Midoriya, as has Endeavor covered for you, Todoroki, Woof. However, Lita went off on his own to actively seek out the hero killer. You would be punished heavily for this, had this fight not gone under. I'm sure you'll receive the punishment you deserve back at UA. I hope you learn from this and don't do this ever again, especially as you still don't have your provisional license, Woof. Tenya looked down, guilt evident in his stature as he nodded his head slightly. That being said, news about Stain's defeat has been spreading. Midoriya, Todoroki, you 2 are the faces across the news, so be wary as reporters will be trying to get a story. Woof. We at the police force couldn't cover up so much. That being said, I hope you enjoy the rest of your internships. Woof. Kenji bored once more before turning away, leaving the students and mentors alone. Manuel went over to Tenya and smacked him over the head, lecturing him once more as his intern apologized for his actions. President Mike smothered Izuku in another tight bear hug as Shuto stayed seated where he was, watching the events unfold. Why, Yamada-sensei? Izuku whined, trying to get out of his grip before sighing in defeat. When are we getting out of the hospital? Once you're all healed up, if you're good to go, we can leave now, he said, resting his head on Izuku's as he hugged him. What about you 2? Are you ready to leave? I should be fine. Endeavor would be waiting for me to get back. I'll be seeing you back at school next then, Shuto replied, standing up and get ready to leave. I should be fine now. Once again, I'm sorry for involving you 2 in this. I let my feelings get the best of me. I promise I'll be back up to speed at school and live up to the expectations of the class as the class president, Tenya announced, clenched fist held high above his head. Izuku laughed lightly, finally managing to remove himself from Mike. That's good. I was starting to wonder when you'd get back up to speed. Shuto only nodded in his direction before they were all checked out, saying their goodbyes. They all went their separate ways, more determined than ever to become heroes. That's it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. With that, take care.